put on a rerun of Miami Vice when I saw you yesterday. I wasn't sure what I was watching for a second. I had to think about it.
You're not alone.
You look good, kid. You look good. I like the outfit.
Thank you. All right, Adam, you ready to rock?
Ready to go, and I'll turn the recording on.
This
now.
meeting is being recorded.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another meeting of the Malden School Committee. Today is Monday, June 7th. The time is 6:00 p.m. As always, in accordance with Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, Mass General Law, Chapter 38, Section 18, as well as the Governor's August 23rd and December 8th, 2020 revised guidance prohibiting assemblance of more than 25 people. This meeting will be conducted via remote participation. In-person attendance by members of the public is prohibited, but all effort will be made to permit public attendance of this meeting via remote access by internet, telephone, and via public broadcast of the meeting by MATV, now known as Urban Media Arts, on all public access television channels. Public access will also be provided by posting draft minutes and/or transcript recording or record of the meeting on the City of Malden website at cityofmalden.org as soon as practicable after the meeting. So what we'll do first is we'll pledge allegiance to our flag. We'll then take a moment of silence for those who have served our country. Clerk will then call the roll to ensure that we have a quorum sufficient to conduct business this evening. And we'll get into this evening's agenda, which consists of the approval of minutes, public comments, superintendent's report, subcommittee reports and discussions, motions and resolutions, personal privilege. Depending on a vote, we will then go into executive session for the purposes of contract negotiations, and then we will come back out to adjourn. Depending on how this evening goes, we do have one more meeting regularly scheduled. That will be for Monday, June 28th at 6 p.m. But please do check back and we'll let you know whether or not that meeting will happen. When we get to the superintendent's report, he will talk about the big loss of Simon DePonta to Malden High School, as well as the City of Malden. And at that time, we will hold a moment of silence then. So if there are no questions, why don't we also make sure that we introduce Danielle at this point, Adam, or do you want to wait?
I would wait a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit. Okay. So why don't we first pledge allegiance to our flag? I pledge allegiance
to the flag
Flag
of the United States of America
and to the
and to the
republic
republic for which it stands,
one nation,
under God,
indivisible, with liberty
and justice for all.
Please remain standing for a moment of silence in honor of all those who have fought for our country and continue to do so across the world today. Thank you. Let's now have our clerk call the roll.
Mayor Christensen,
Here.
Mr. Drummy,
Here.
Mr. Proyer,
Yeah.
Mr. Gray,
Here.
Mr. Iovino, Ms. Luong,
Here.
Mr. McCarthy,
Here,
Ms. Spadafora,
Here.
Mr. Weldai,
Here.
Superintendent Oteri,
Here.
Student Representative Davidson.
Here.
All right, so we do have a quorum sufficient to conduct business this evening. Now, Mr. Weldai, we'll segue over.
Yes, and Mr. Iovino just joined us.
Okay. All right, Mr. Weldai, introduce our translation services as you always do.
At this point, I'll just
One of-
kick it over to you, Danielle.
One of our favorite moments.
You can get us going.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Christensen, Mr. Weldai. Good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here to provide language service in 7 languages tonight. English speakers, y'all can just hold tight for a moment. I will go ahead and introduce in each of the different languages how to access the interpretation, and then I'll pass it back over to Adam. I will start with Arabic. مساء الخير، السلام عليكم. أنا اسمي دانيال وأنا هكون المترجم لكم الليلة. عندنا ترجمة باللغة العربية. إذا أردتم الاستماع إلي في الترجمة يمكنكم الضغط على رمز الكرة الأرضية واختيار اللغة العربية Arabic. إذا كنت على هاتف محمول عليك الضغط على 3 نقط لرؤية المزيد من الخيارات، ثم اختيار الترجمة للغات، ثم اختيار اللغة العربية، ثم تم. شكرا جزيلا. I will pass it over to Emily for Spanish.
Buenos días y bienvenidos a todos a la reunión del comité escolar. Estoy aquí para orientarlos a la función de interpretación para esta noche. Si desea escuchar la reunión en español, simplemente ubícase al fondo de su pantalla y allá cuando se empieza la presentación habrá un globito. Puede hacer clic en el iconito del globo y de ahí escoger Interpretation y Spanish. Si se está conectando tras su móvil, empuje los 3 punticos y de allá escoge Interpretación, pues Spanish, pues Done. Si tiene algún problema, por favor, escríbelo en el chat y estamos verando. Gracias. Now I will pass it over to Brendan for Portuguese.
Boa noite, eu vou ser um intérprete de português. Se está precisando de interpretação de português, a gente vai ligar daqui a pouco a interpretação. Se tiver no computador, então vai ficar que vai aparecer um globinho, vai clicar no globinho e depois escolher o idioma português. Se tiver no celular, vai clicar nos 3 pontinhos abaixo à direita, depois clicar interpretação, depois escolher português. E pode colocar áudio original mudo, se quiser, depois clicar terminado. Muito obrigado. Nikita.
Bonsoir, mon nom c'est Nikita Lamont, c'est moi qui traduit pour nous après-midi en créole, à soir après-midi en créole. Si nous avons un computer, si nous avons un ordinateur, nous parlons côté qui marque langue non à peser Haitian créole. Après ça, si c'est langue mobile, si c'est langue on s'il la noyer, n'a pas 3 petits points, n'a pas cliqué sur 3 petits points, après ça, n'a pas qu'à donner. Si nous avons aucune question, aucun problème avec la technologie, nous devons aller dans le chat line, n'a pas écrit, nous mettons écrit en créole, m'a pas traduit pour nous, ça nous écrit en créole. Oui, merci. Now I'm going to pass it to Lynn in Vietnamese.
Thank you. Xin chào quý vị, tên tôi là Linh, tôi sẽ là người thông dịch tiếng Việt cho quý vị hôm nay từ Rosetta Languages. Một khi chúng tôi đã kích hoạt tính năng phiên dịch, xin vui lòng bấm vào biểu tượng quả địa cầu trên màn hình và chọn ngôn ngữ là tiếng Việt, Vietnamese để được nghe phiên dịch trực tiếp. Nếu quý vị đang dùng điện thoại thông minh smartphone, xin bấm vào 3 dấu chấm rồi sau đó chọn ngôn ngữ phiên dịch Language Interpretation, rồi sau đó chọn tiếng Việt, Vietnamese và sau đó là xong. Xin cảm ơn quý vị. Now I'm passing it on to Mandarin. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn. Hi, this is Terry Ying. I'll be your Mandarin interpreter. 大家好，我是 Terry， 我是你们的普通话翻译。待会在屏幕下方就可以看到一个地球仪的图标，你选择地球仪的图标，然后再点 Mandarin， 就可以听到国语的翻译了。如果呢你们是用手机或者是用平板电脑上来的话呢，你就可以选择屏幕下方的3个点，再选择语言的选项，然后你可以听到 Mandarin 的是国语的翻译。好，谢谢大家。I'll pass it to Cantonese, please.
Hi, thank you, Terry. Good evening, everyone. I'll be your Cantonese interpreter for the meeting tonight. 大家好，歡迎大家嚟到今晚嘅會議。我哋係嚟自 Rosetta Languages 嘅團隊。我係你今晚嘅廣東話翻譯員。如果你想聽到廣東話同步翻譯嘅時候咧，見到個地球儀撳落去嘅地球儀，咁揀 Cantonese 就會聽到廣東話同步翻譯㗎啦。如果你用手機嘅話咧，咁你要撳嗰個3個點，再撳落去，寫住更多，揀 Cantonese。亦都會成功進入咗廣東話嘅同步翻譯㗎啦。多謝大家。Thank you. Back to you, Daniel.
Thank you, Anna. I would like to remind all interpreters now to make sure you are not on mute. Make sure your microphone is on. And then just a brief reminder to all our speakers tonight to please not to get speaking too fast. I know sometimes you can get very excited, but try to keep it at a moderate pace just to ease the interpretation. If at any point we need you to slow down, I'll make a gesture like this, or some of the other interpreters may do so, just to encourage you to go a little bit slower. And with that, you can go ahead and activate the interpretation channels.
All right, here we go. And we're live.
All right, so first on the agenda is the approval of minutes. The regular session minutes of May 3rd, 2021.
Motion. Motion. Second.
Motion by Mr. Drummy, seconded by Mr. McCarthy. Any questions about those minutes? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Anybody opposed to acceptance? Hearing none, the ayes have it. That carries unanimously. Executive session minutes of May 3rd, 2021.
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Iovino, seconded by Ms. Luong. Any questions about those? You've had a chance to look them over. Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Anybody opposed? The ayes have it. That carries unanimously. Item number 2 on the agenda is public comment. This is an opportunity for members of the community to address us this evening. We only ask that you state your name and address for the record, and please just keep your remarks to a few minutes. So with that being said, we'll go to Mr. Weldai, who typically helps us administer this part of the agenda.
Sure thing. So for anybody who'd like to participate, please just click raise hand or use the raise hand feature under reactions, or type your name and address to the panelists in the chat box. If anybody would like to participate, just raise hand or use the raise hand feature, or type your name and address into the chat box. We have no phone participants, all Zoom attendees. And we have our first hand, Eden.
Hey, good evening.
Uh-oh. All right, Eden, I'm going to promote you to a panelist. Won't let me do anything else.
Good evening.
Hi, my name is Eden Garhart Smith. I live at 16 Corey Road in Malden. I just wanted to say, I know this year's been really tough and I'm thankful for everything, but I wanted to say I really like the later, of course my dog, the later start time that has happened this year. And I didn't know, especially in the junior high area or middle school, if that could continue in any way. I know I've been in before COVID and seen a long line of students for tardies, and I would just want to express, I think that's utterly ridiculous that you're late to school and then you're in a line to be even later to class. So maybe if it were a later start time, that might cut down on people being tardy, although I think some people will always be late. That's just life. But I know I've enjoyed the 8:15 start time, and I honestly haven't been in, like, this is the first year Atticus is in 6th grade, so I don't know what the start time would have been. I think it will be moving to 7:45, which is like a full 30 minutes earlier. So even an 8 o'clock would make a difference, but I just wanted to express my desire or think it could be beneficial. I know in previous years, it was looked at the high school level, and some of the arguments against were sports. I can only say for Atticus is both involved in baseball and soccer. Nothing starts before 5:15. So I don't understand what would be affecting it on that end. And then in addition, jobs like these are kids who are 13 and 14 years old. I don't know that you can get a work permit at that age. But I just wanted to put in my 2 cents that I enjoyed it, and I would like it to continue. My fear is that next year we'll go back to 7:45 and then get stuck, and it's hard to make changes. So I just wanted to express my, I don't know, my enjoyment of an 8:15 start time. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wishing to?
We've got one more hand. Julie Schmidt. I'm going to promote to panelist.
Hi there. I'm at my son's game. I'm just not sure. Are you able to hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes. Good evening.
Okay. Hi, I'm Julie Schmidt. I'm a second grade teacher at the Linden STEAM Academy, and it was brought to my attention that the Ferryway School was bringing up a proposal to rename the cafeteria after my father, Paul Abare. And I just wanted to speak on my, on behalf of myself and my mom and my sister and my family, just how honored and touched we are that the Ferryway community would do that to honor my dad, and just what an important place the city of Malden was to my dad. So I just wanted to thank the staff at the Ferryway for that. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. And seeing no other hands or messages in the chat.
All right, thank you once again, Mr. Weldai. So let's go to our superintendent for his report.
An item out of my report out of order, and do that first before we get to them. We would like to extend our deepest condolences to the family of Simon DePonta, a 2020 graduate of Malden High School who was killed last Friday, May 28th, in a vehicular accident on Route 93. Simon was a member of the golf and lacrosse teams at Malden High School. And this Wednesday, June 9th, the boys and girls lacrosse team will be having a tribute to Simon at the girls lacrosse game at McDonald Stadium, 4 p.m., June 9th. The family's wishes in lieu of flowers for Simon is that people donate to the JL11 Fund. That's www.jl11fund.org. That's the James Luty Fund. It's in support of mental health awareness and teen suicide. Back in 2017, James Luty was a Stoneham High School hockey player who took his own life. And the athletic department, specifically the boys and girls lacrosse teams, supported the Luty family and Stoneham athletics during this very difficult time. So if you could, that's the way the family would like Simon remembered. Please do that. And if you would join me in honoring Simon with a moment of silence, that would be wonderful. Thank you. And thank you for allowing us to take that out of order, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
At this time, I'd like to go back to the agenda, and the first item on my report is the Malden High School Student Voice Project. I'd like to call up Malden High School Principal Chris Mastrangelo to present this overview, along with, I think he has Guccina Latang, and I think Romario is here as well, but I'll let Mr. Mastrangelo introduce them.
Hi, everybody. Sorry, I was just unmuting. I do have a group of students that we really want to hear from, as the name of the project is the Student Voice Project. And just a brief history, this really stemmed from conversations that we have been having for the last couple of years at the high school around our really increased want and need to have agency and voice from our students. So it was in May of last year, shortly after the George Floyd murder, that Miss Sibley and I, Boyle House Principal Miss Sibley and I had a conversation during quarantine about ways that we could really formally move forward with this. And it kind of was born from that. And we were able to open up opportunity for all students to be part of it. They went through a process an interview process to be part of it. We recruited Katrina Latang and Romario Bernache, as we had a couple others that with us that since left the district, and it was really under the watchful eye of Stephanie Sibley. And the way I like to say it is that the students, we were driving the bus, but the students were telling us where to go. And the students went on a 10-month journey of really looking at us as a school. We partnered with Youth Truth, which is an organization out of California that did an extensive survey for our students, our families, and our faculty. And I will take note that over 1,500 of our Malden High School students participated in the survey. They were hoping that we would get about 600 to 700. In fact, they told us we were the biggest turnout for a survey that they've ever had. Students dove into that data, focused on 3 areas, which we're going to fold into our plan moving forward. And at that point, I think it's the best time for me to kind of step out. I know the students have a tremendous presentation for everybody, and I am going to step out, step back, and turn it over to the members of our Student Voice Project, which I believe have been also up. Thank you, Adam.
Okay, so I'm gonna share my screen and then we can get started. Okay, so hello everyone. We are the Student Voice Project, which is a group of students from Malden High. We started this year, and here are our findings. So before we begin, we want to introduce and give endless thanks to our phenomenal advisors and mentors who have guided us through this whole process. We have learned so much.
We want to start off with why is student voice important? Over the past few months, we have been able to connect students and teachers more than we ever have before, and through different conversations on race, community, mental health, and what could make MHS a better community for everyone.
So like Mr. Mastrangelo mentioned, back in October, students participated in the Youth Truth Survey. In this survey, there were 8 areas of focus, and out of those 8, we decided to focus on 3 in particular, those 3 being belonging, peer collaboration, college and career readiness, and emotional and mental health. As a group, we decided to focus on the subcategory of race and ethnicity. As we all know, Malden High School is one of the most diverse schools in the state, and we really wanted to see if that statement actually reflected the experiences of Malden High students.
So our first group is the Belonging and Peer Collaboration group. My name is Sammy. I'm a junior at Malden High, and I go by the She series.
My name is Julie. I'm also a junior at Malden High, and I go by she, her pronouns.
My name is Michaela Henry, and I'm a junior at MHS, and I go by she, her pronouns.
The other members of our group are Reem, Alan, and Miriam. Unfortunately, they couldn't make it tonight, but they also contributed to our project and research.
So let's dive into our first category, peer belonging and collaboration. So on the Youth Truth survey, there are questions related to this category. And when students answer, all of their responses, which are anonymous, are carried into a database in which we can sort them by different subcategories, such as what is the highest and lowest rated questions. Highest meaning most people agree with the statement, and lowest meaning the lowest amount of students or survey takers agree. So our first data point is going to look at a comparison between Malden High School and every other school in Massachusetts. There are a lot of pieces of data in this graph, so we're going to look at 4. So in the beginning, we said we are going to look at our highest rated and lowest rated questions. 69% of our students agree with the statement, most students at this school are friendly to me, which makes this statement in this category our highest rated question. And how often do you work with other students for your classes, even when your teacher doesn't ask you or tell you to? Only 26% of students agree with this statement or this question, which makes it the lowest rated question. Another detail important in this graph is that even though it is our highest rated question, we score lower than the typical Massachusetts school, and which is really surprising, consider that we are the most diverse school in Massachusetts. So here goes our next one.
All right, so Sammy just showed you a piece of data that we studied looking at the Youth Truth Survey, but we also wanted to get our own data. And we did this through conducting student focus groups through Google Meets, obviously, to talk to students face-to-face or through the screen, to really see for ourselves, like listen to their stories, hear about their experiences, and to really take in what they thought. So in our notes, we got some quotes from some freshmen, some seniors, and everything in between. And we had a ninth grader tell us that it's been hard for them to feel like a part of the school because everything's remote, and it's been hard for them to connect with other peers online. In comparison, a senior told us that they've been in the school for 4 years, and they would feel like most of the time they feel like they belong to the school community. So we really want to see if the discrepancies between the 9th and 12th graders are simply because of their age or because of are there actually like issues happening in the school as a whole. In order to further understand the issue, we saw that 42% of students at Malden High School feel like a part of the school's community, but on average, 60% of students in Massachusetts school feel the same way. And so obviously there's that 18% discrepancy between the average in Massachusetts and the average in Malden High, but most importantly, we want to focus on what's happening in our own school and the fact that more than half, 58% of Malden High School students don't feel like a part of the school community.
In our data, we saw that Malden High has lower scores than other schools in our state, and less than half the school feel like they're a part of the school community. This made us question, why do students feel that way? And we also wanted to know, and we also wanted to create different ways to help this problem. And we wanted to create a more inclusive environment so people do not feel alone.
So based on our findings, we came up with 3 solutions, and most of them honed down on the freshmen because they are new to the high school and they're coming from a middle school, well, most of them. And so they've known like 100 other people in their grade for their last 4 years. And now they're coming into Malden High, and now they have 500 students in their grade. So there's no time to get to know one another. So one way to do this is through community building. And it's just activities where you can get to know one another, where we really make time for it. Our second solution is a buddy-buddy system with our freshmen and seniors. It's a great way for seniors to get to share advice, and now freshmen have an upperclassman friend that they can talk to and go to for the next 4 years, or unless the seniors come back, stuff like that. And then our last one is for every grade, in which teachers can give more space and time to get to know one another through icebreakers, fun activities, just more time to get to know one another rather than jumping straight into the curriculum. So that is our first part of the presentation, and now we're going to go to college and career readiness.
Hi there, my name is Emmeline. I'm going to be covering the college and career readiness part of the presentation. Unfortunately, my other 2 group mates aren't here today, so it's just going to be me. Okay, so just a second, the meeting isn't really loading for me right now. Overall, the highest rated question in this category is that my school has helped me develop the skills and knowledge for my college level courses, which makes sense because our most basic level classes are the college prep classes. Meanwhile, the lowest rated question in our district was, my school has helped me figure out which careers match my interests, which we will look at the data for in just a moment. So as you can see here, from what we have interpreted, the SD means the school district and the SA means the state average. The lowest rated question here is, my school has helped me figure out which careers and interests match my abilities. They're both lowly rated as the as it was recorded across race and ethnicities. This is especially impactful for our city as Malden prides itself on diversity, and most students across all races and ethnicities are feeling their needs are not being met by Malden High School at the moment. Additionally, as you can see here, the rating is also low across the state and the district, but instead the question is, my school has helped me understand the steps I need in order to apply for college. As we looked at the findings across our research of the data, we decided that students feel they are gaining the preparation needed to develop the skills and knowledge needed for a college level course. We also saw disagreements outweigh the arguments when it came to students finding their career matches. Additionally, Asians, Blacks, and other ethnicities disagreed when it comes to helping students with the STEPS college application process, while white, multi-race, and Hispanic people agreed. When it comes to steps the student needs in order to get the job done, they want all subcategories outweighed agreements except Black and other ethnic students. When we looked at the problem overall, we realized that college is what most students expect to achieve after the end of their time at high school, but many topics regarding college and career readiness are what students seem to be the most unsure about. College is something that isn't really discussed in casual conversations among students, as it can be a topic that brings a lot of stress and overthinking to some. These topics haven't been normalized, as many people either don't see themselves succeeding in college or even being able to have the support that they need to even go to college. In the student focus groups meeting, In the student focus group meetings, there was a rather mixed bag of data that we had to work with. Some students said that Malden High School was an environment where they felt would take them to college. A lot of people take classes here at Malden High that can prepare them for certain fields in college, but others not so much. Some students, including sophomores and juniors, said that they still aren't sure what they want to do yet, and that thinking about the future can often be sometimes scary and difficult. When looking at the overall grouping of students, it's clear that a good number of students either disagree or are uncertain about their answer. But when looking at the subgroup of race and ethnicities, it's clear that this is a question that most students across many backgrounds either aren't sure about or disagree with as well. Perhaps this says that as a school, we should encourage more students to talk about college and careers after high school more often than we already do. As we were wrapping up, we had 3 overall proposed recommendations. First of all, we wanted to have more career workshops to give a student a chance to figure out what they wanted to do after high school. Secondly, we wanted to start at each grade, students would be able to pick colleges to visit. And lastly, more college exposure and college fairs during their free periods.
So thank you, Emmeline. That concludes our second half the second portion of our presentation. Next is going to be our emotional and mental health group.
I'll go first. Hi, my name is Carolina Cuevas. I go by she, her, hers, and I'm a senior at Malden High School. Also, Talis is not here at the moment, but he's also a senior at high school.
Hello.
Saya
I'm
and
Makita
Meki
Bell.
should be here. Oh, there you go.
Hello, I'm Makita Bell. I'm a freshman at Malden High School, and I go by she, her pronouns.
I'm sure Sai is here. Maybe she's just getting started. She's a wonderful freshman. She goes by the she pronouns. So we'll just get started and hopefully she'll be on her way.
Because I can't talk right now, all right, I'm going to cover her parts. So here you go. So the highest rated question in our category, emotional mental health, is when I'm feeling obsessed, stressed, or having problems, I know how some ways to cope with it. The lowest rated question in this category was when I'm feeling upset, stressed, or having problems, I know someone outside of school who I can talk to about it. These are the rest of the questions asked with recorded data. When I'm feeling upset, stressed, or having problems, I know someone outside of school who I can talk about. When I'm feeling upset, stressed, or having problems, my school has programs or services that can help me. And 3, when I'm feeling upset, stressed, or having problems, I know some ways to make myself feel better or cope with it. In this graph, we focus specifically on the grades. So as you can see, they're divided by 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th graders. The question for this graph is when I'm feeling upset, stressed, or having problems, I know someone outside of school who I can talk to about it. As you can see in the blues, those are for our school, the Malden High School, whereas individual, whereas the orange is for our school overall. On the graph, we see that 9th, 10th, and 12th graders are over the average, whereas 11th graders are greatly under the average. Now, that could be due to preparing, like getting ready for high school. Like a lot of freshmen are introduced to people about how to handle things and things like that. But then as the years gradually go on, that seems to decrease. So we tend to wonder, like, is that like a thing that's specifically due to one being in a certain grade, or maybe it could be something about what the school is providing or how those students feel as they are progressing in the school. I know some ways to make myself feel better or cope with it. As the last slide, we have again divided into the 4 categories, 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th graders. For the first 2, 9th, 10th, we have a greater average of the overall for our school, whereas the 11th and 12th graders are greatly under the average of this. This is also, again, another thing that we were wondering that has been brought to our attention. Like, is it because they're young? A lot of these 9th and 10th graders are just getting out of middle school. Are they communicating with the resources like the previous graph before? Is there a realization as in the 11th and 12th graders as they're getting closer to adulthood and trying to figure out their lives, and they are not worrying, or they don't have as much time or are too stressed to figure out how to better themselves and find the resources they need? Next slide, please. Mickey, do you mind covering this part for Saya? Please.
Can you hear me right now?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. I just want to make sure. Okay, so this question is, when I'm feeling upset, stressed, or having problems, I know some ways to make myself feel better or cope with it. So in our school year in October, we can see that our school got mainly strongly agree for this, well, more in the agree section. So this kind of shows that people have a lot of ways to deal with things when they feel stressed or upset. And as we can also see that our school has a large amount compared to Massachusetts schools and also the youth true schools, the average of the youth true schools. So this seems like a very good thing, but at the same exact time, we really want to reduce that neither agree nor disagree part, and the disagree and of course the strongly disagree part. We really want to have students feel like they have someone to talk to, or someone, or ways to cope, like better ways to cope through things if they ever feel upset or need anything. Okay, so again, just like the evidence that we just looked at, these this data is just like was briefly mentioned before. So over 60% of students in every grade level reported that they know somebody outside of the school that they can talk to. Less than 40% of students in every grade level reported that they know of any school programs that can help with cope with stress. Over 70% of students in every grade reported that they know some way to cope with stress. So basically, this is just like our brief touching upon. So in the past year and a half, students' lives have changed dramatically due to the pandemic. Between the change in lifestyle, government restrictions, school closures, and the start of online learning, students have experienced increased levels of stress, and of course their mental health has definitely had an impact to that. Students whose only safe space was school, students have had at risk relatives whom they tend to, students have learning disabilities or need more support, all had their mental health severely impacted. So in the student focus groups, we had the chance to work with 10th and 11th graders and learn many things about how the students dealt with their emotional and mental health, such as exercising, playing sports, and just playing outside, having a teacher to talk to about anything that they may be struggling with either at home or at school, planning out breaks in between study sessions to increase their productivity, and of course talking to family members and close friends or anyone else that they feel like they can talk to about any of their situations. So these are just quotes that we have put together anonymously from the 10th and 11th graders that we surveyed. So too much homework, some teachers aren't flexible with late work, so when you fall behind, it really impacts your grade. Students and teachers are friendly and you feel very welcome, and teachers are always there to help. Finding a balance between taking care of yourself and getting work done. Sometimes I'm too shy to reach out and get help from people. Homework is a big part of my mental health, and in the beginning it was obviously easy, but now I have more work piling up. Oh, okay. Upon analyzing the data from the U-True student survey and the data from student focus groups, we found that a lot of students thought that the online learning was easy in the beginning, but it got increasingly harder as the school year progressed. We found some of the roots of this sentiment to be the amount of work given out by teachers, the lack of connection between students and staff, the new learning environment paired with the new school, mainly amongst ninth graders. Of course, since we're freshmen, we don't really feel like that there's a way for us to communicate with teachers easier. It was harder to manage their time to be able to get work done in a timely manner and find things out for themselves. Students feel like teachers are friendly and are very open to talk and help students. The hard part is connecting with them when you don't know them. So of course, we haven't really built that connection with our teachers yet, so we don't know how we may be able to communicate with them in a better way.
For the solutions on this slide, we have solution 1, hold more student-led and teacher-led focus groups for a way of communicating and helping each other. We've learned that throughout this project, throughout the months and time that we've been putting into this research, along with also holding our own focus groups with other teachers and students from our school, we noticed that it makes people feel more comfortable and know that they're in like a safe environment to speak out their minds and tell about how they truly feel, whereas more often not, people feel like they shouldn't really say anything at all and feel uncomfortable worrying about like the repercussions. Solution 2, holding monthly sessions to help focus on mental health and emotional health, as well as teach ways of coping with stress and make it hopefully mandatory. We've learned that it helps a lot not not only during the virtual learning where we had the mindful readiness, and we also had the mental health sessions with one or two of the high school graduates that came, and then we would talk like with meditation, things like that. That ended up being a really good example of how we ended up being able to use that and how many people showed up. It was very helpful. Solution 3 continues SVP in coming years to keep addressing the problems that exist and the ones that may come up in the future. Just a reminder that this is our first year starting this, but we generally believe that we have done a lot of great progress on it. So hopefully, even after this pandemic dials down, that we will continue to do this work as the years move forward.
Thank you, Emotional and Mental Health Group. We also want to thank Maddie Lamb. She was our Brief for Justice. She was in charge of that, and it was very helpful to many students. So that concludes our presentation. We wanted to thank everyone for listening and also, of course, giving us this wonderful opportunity to present our year-long work. Today, we discussed our findings on peer collaboration and belonging, college and career readiness, mental and emotional health. But while we were researching about these categories, we also worked on these categories on ourselves, because being members of this phenomenal project gave us the opportunity to reflect. And one of the most important findings was that students are stronger than they think they are. And so thank you again to our members, our advisors, Ms. Latang, Mr. Bernesh, Ms. Sibley, Mr. Mastrangelo, our house principals, and everyone for listening. Thank you.
All right, I think I speak for the entire school committee on a job well done. Let's take some questions. Questions of the committee. Let's go to our student representative first. Only makes sense. Ms. Davidson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And of course, I know almost everyone on that committee, but I just have 2 questions. One of them is, how is the survey distributed? I think I may have gotten an email, but I just want to make sure I'm right about that. And my second question is, do we have an estimate of how many students actually filled out the form in every grade level? Because I'm really intrigued to see like how many seniors versus how many freshmen.
Sammy?
Yep. So hello, Juliana. So how it was distributed, Mr. Mastrangelo, he would send out nightly emails reminding people about this survey. It was open for a very long time, so if students couldn't make it, they could fill it out whenever. Mr. Mastrangelo also gave teachers information about this survey, so teachers could distribute it to their students, and also teachers gave time in their class to administer the survey and also tell to students to fill it out. I don't have the numbers for it, but I was hoping Ms. Sibley or Mr. Mastrangelo did. If they did, that would be very helpful.
Ms. Sibley?
I don't have the specific breakdown in front of me. I know it was just under, I think it was 1,580 students participated out of our 1,800. I don't have the actual breakdown by grade in front of me. And we did make time available during our math classes this year for our students to take it, to participate in the survey during the class, I think, which contributed to the really outstanding number of return we had on the survey.
Is that something you could get to,
yes.
Juliana? Okay.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah, I'll take care of that and make sure that I share that with the group before the end of the meeting. I'll just put it in the chat.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Other questions? Let's go to Mr. Weldai.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you all for what is one of the best presentations that I think we've had in a while. I mean, the work that you did was phenomenal, and it was really nice to see such a large amount of people participate. So you get a really big swath of data, which doesn't always happen. Particularly when I was thinking about the first section, Sammy, Julie, and Michaela were highlighting the belongingness piece in particular. I'm curious, and I know you don't have the answer to this, but when the data was done, right, it's October of 2020. So at that point, we've all been out of school for like 7 months. And so I was looking at it thinking, wow, 42% feeling like they were a part of a community felt like scary low. But then you sort of have to factor in, like, we've all been kind of doing our own thing for like 7 months. And I would be really curious to see what that number looks like next October, particularly when, you highlighted the senior, the anecdotal, like the senior who sort of said, well, like 80% of the time I felt like I was a part of something. And in my head, it was almost like a phew, okay, like there's hopefully some sort of a happy medium. So I'm looking for, I guess my point is I'm really looking forward to seeing what this data looks like when you're able to do it again with a group that's been consistently, in the building. But I thought it was phenomenal. I mean, Emmeline's piece on the college and career readiness, things that we know, exposing people to college early on is a great thing. And in particular, while Carolina and McLeod, and I know Saya was trying to speak, I don't know, must have been a technical thing because I could see you trying to speak, and I'm sorry about that. I thought that part was great too, but honestly, my favorite part of the whole presentation was, we had the sharing screen view was at the very end, because it means a lot, I think, to have a school and a district that values student voice and consistently finds opportunities to not only make sure that your voice is heard in the building, but in the district, right? You're getting a chance to really present your findings in a bigger picture. And one of my favorite parts, I think, of the whole night was watching, just because she happened to be the one square on my screen, how insanely proud Ms. Sibley looked of you while you were presenting, especially towards the end when you were saying, and this is just year one, right? Because there's more to go. So I really look forward to sort of seeing where you go with this. And it was great to hear and to digest a lot of this information tonight. So thank you.
Thank you. Other members? If I might, just from the superintendent, go right ahead.
You can go first if you want. I'll just sum up at the end if that's
Oh,
all
okay.
right.
Yeah, that'd be fine. Yeah, I just wanted to let the group know that one thing the school committee is closing in on is having a fully dedicated health center be located at Malden High School. As a matter of fact, thanks to Maria Louise, who works alongside me here in the mayor's office, she's been spearheading the process upon which that will happen. And it is currently out to bid, meaning that we are now looking actually for a contractor to come in and build this center, which we are hoping to open with Principal Mastrangelo in the fall. And it will have everything you can imagine, including a feature on mental health services. So you'll be able to access those services on site at Malden High School. So we'll let you know more as we get closer, but this is the closest we've been. We actually were hoping to do it pre-COVID, but we just couldn't pull it off. And then the crisis hit, but we never have stopped working at it. Because I think everybody on this call knows how important it is to you. So, but this is now a matter of when, not if. So we'll let you all know as we close in on this long sought after goal. Let's see, back to our superintendent then.
Sure, if I could just take a moment, I just want to thank the students for their work and dedication on this. They did a remarkable job presenting this. They did it with such poise and such passion. I'm really very proud of them. Also, I just want to thank Mr. Bernash and Ms. Latang for their guidance on this. But I also want to talk about the high school staff for their really courage in taking this on. This speaks to the growth mindset that Mr. Mastrangelo and his staff embrace. These are hard questions. I've done this when I was a high school principal, and your faculty and as a student, a teacher leader there, when you ask hard questions, you get hard answers, and you can kind of get defensive, or you can put your head in the sand, or you can actually embrace it and say, how do we make it better? And, without hesitation, when this project came to light, I had talked to Mr. Mastrangelo, and I said, you just understand, you're going to get some answers that are going to make sometimes you feel uncomfortable, like you're failing, but that's what you need to hear to get better. And I think that they have done a remarkable job of this. This is a great foundation and starting point for going forward. This was done at probably the most difficult and worst time you can in terms of school community when we were remote. I mean, it was very difficult to build that. I think going forward, you're going to see there's some really phenomenally positive anecdotes that came out of this, some of the responses. So I think this is a great start to make Malden High School a better, more inclusive, welcoming, and supportive place. And I just want to thank Mr. Mastrangelo and his staff. I think that when Mr. Weldai made the comment about Ms. Sibley, she understands this. She embraces this work. This is part of the work that we need to do as a district, and frankly, probably as a community in general, to get better. And we are really proud of that work. So I think that the schools are going to lead the way in this, and I have all the confidence in the world that this will trickle down to our K-8 schools as well, and we're well on our way to make Malden a much better school community.
All right, very good.
If I could, Mr. Mayor, just to sum up from my spot, and you saw it in the findings, the Student Voice Project, this was not a one and done. As we told the students from day one, this is going to be folded into the fabric of the school. We anticipate replacing some of our graduating seniors with some underclassmen. This will build momentum and potentially make it bigger and even better. The other piece is Ms. Sibley has done this work in her previous district. When we spoke, I talked at the beginning about she and I speaking back in May, and she really had the oversight for this. And as we're all very proud, Mr. Weldai, I can add to you, when the students presented to the faculty, Ms. Sibley had that same smile on, because she was, like, as I said to her, the proud mummy, so, but the work that she's done and the guidance that she's given and her expertise and professionalism to also pull back and let the kids go where they may go without interjecting and interceding. It was really, I learned a great deal from Ms. Sibley during this process, and the students that you saw present tonight are our pride and joy. And one of the things that we've said at the high school is that we need to stop running away from uncomfortable moments and running towards them, because that's the only way we're going to improve and move and get better. And there were some things here that really were uncomfortable. So there was some defensiveness when the kids presented to the faculty, as we expected. But it gives us a starting point, gives us a better insight of where we need to go. We're also partnering with Youth Truth continuously. So next year we'll have some data to compare from, like Mr. Weldai said, from October to October, and we can really track our progress in those areas. So although it was a little uncomfortable to hear some of these things, it's incredibly necessary for us to do so. And we're going to continue this work to make Malden the most, just an equitable opportunity for positive and quality education for all of our students. And I'm excited for the work.
Going forward, the committee should expect to hear back on this in the spring every year, or
I think
time frame.
Ms. Sibley, would you agree that the spring of each year would probably be the best time for us to report out on this annually? Ms. Sibley, I'll defer to you.
Yes, I think that makes a lot of sense.
Okay. And we do a lot of studies, as you can imagine. Where do you go from here? In other words, what low-hanging piece of fruit can we implement come September? Is there any of it that we can do right away, or is a lot of it require time and funding?
I think it's a great segue to the next high school presentation that's on the docket tonight, because a lot of what we're trying to do really works hand in hand with the new schedule that we're trying to put forth. It allows for deeper conversation. Matter of fact, one of the action steps was to back away from jumping right into learning and talk about team building within classes. Well, with our new schedule, we're hopefully going to have time for that. With our flex block that we're trying to put in next year, we're going to have opportunity during the course of the day for students to really dig deeper into mental health, mindfulness, things that bring them joy during the school day. And it's also going to allow us to build that sense of community, because we're not so uber focused on that 55 minutes to get our curriculum done. With the longer blocks, we're going to be able to go deeper into not just the academic needs and concerns for students, but also the social emotional concerns, and quite frankly, things that just make the school a little more fun and a little more of a school community. I was having a conversation today with a teacher, things that we're going to be able to bring back in next year due to the new schedule. So I'm excited.
Let's do just that then. Let's jump to that item. which is MHS Scheduling Committee.
Yes, I believe we're going to. I just want to say how proud I am of the students who just presented. They're amazing, as always. And a couple of them were out on the hot turf for 6 hours yesterday helping with graduation, and we're feeling a little tired last night, so they bounced back beautifully. So I believe
they may want to stay on and hear this and see if we can pass this through the school committee tonight. So I think is that how you want to introduce it, or does the superintendent want to add a little bit as well to this proposal?
So, Mr. Chair, and Mr. Mastrangelo, is a good time to make the switch for the attendees. I think I've got, all right, folks that are here for the first part, I'm going to switch you back. Anybody you want me to keep, Mr. Mastrangelo?
I don't know if there's maybe one or two of them might want to stay on to ask questions, or this was the Student Voice Project heard this presentation already. We went through the students. This group went through the students for their insights, so maybe maybe those questions were already answered potentially.
Can you just keep them on, Mr. Weldai, and they can sign off if they want, but otherwise they can stay on?
So the role was, I just switched role to attend. I'm moving lightning speed here, Mr. Chair. We just changed role to attendee. But Ms. Sibley, keep you on?
Yes.
Perfect. So Ms. Fowler and Ms. Quinn should both be here.
Okay.
So if I could just briefly, as we're waiting for them to jump on, I'm going to just a quick overview, and then I'm going to hand it over to Ms. Fowler, who's going to present. And I know we're Malden High School heavy tonight in the school committee meetings. I do appreciate all this time and attention, but this process of changing our schedule started about 5 years ago before I sat in this seat, and we had a group of teachers, and I know Ms. Fowler was part of that group 5 years ago, that did a great deal of work and research towards shifting away from our 7-day waterfall schedule. I just don't think the timing was right 5 years ago for whatever reason. We started circling back to these conversations when I took over as principal. In fact, we were scheduled to do 10 or 20 school visits in and around New England in the spring of last year through our work with the Bar Foundation to focus on new schedules. And what we did is we tried to keep the momentum, and we shifted into our schedules this year with the longer blocks. We decided to invigorate this group, bring them back. I had an idea of what I wanted to do. I was excited that Michelle Filer and Ryan Gallagher and a couple like Shannon Votard, a couple others that run the group 5 years ago were willing to jump back in because they had a contextual idea of what happened in the past. And I will slow down. Yes, I'm sorry. I will slow down. My excitement sometimes comes out. And they've done, we met back in, I believe it was late September or early October, kind of laid out what I wanted, what I envisioned, and said, go. And the other panelists that joined them did an incredible amount of research and work. Marta Cabral was the administrative representative to the group, but she really tried to stay back because it was a collective group. And what Michelle's about to present is where we landed. And I think it's very exciting. So at that point, I will hand over to Michelle, and myself, Michelle, and Caitlin Quinn will be available for any questions.
All right, thank you so much for that introduction. We have been working on this since December. There's a committee that's been working on this of about 10 to 12 representatives from all or almost all of the departments in the school. We spent some time researching, collaborating, brainstorming, coming up with different ideas. We came up with a proposal. We surveyed staff and students and caregivers on that. The union reached a tentative agreement with management, and then it went to the union membership for a vote last Friday, and the vote passed 65 to 23 with 75% approval from those who voted. So we do have a lot of support for this proposal, and this is what we ended up with. So we did have 7 periods with 6 periods a day in a waterfall. So it rotated every day. What we found this year with the A day, B day schedules, you have a set schedule that just alternates back and forth every day during distance learning, and then that continued in a small way during hybrid learning, and then we're back to that same model during the full-time return at the high school. And we found that that really worked. It gave a lot of stability for students. So there's no more learning 7 different days and which periods go when and what are the different times that the periods are meeting. And then especially for someone who's a newcomer to the United States, trying to explain that and adjust to a new culture and climate and language, it's overwhelming. And even students who aren't adjusting to those things, it is overwhelming. So we wanted to keep it more stable. Students would know what to expect. And then one of the things that we found with this stability is that it allows staff and students to be more flexible. So we talked about how we have a lot of students who work, or we have a lot of students who take care of siblings. And as upperclassmen, we wanted to be able to provide opportunities for them to be able to leave early in the morning. Leave early in the afternoon or come later in the morning, which wasn't really possible in our old schedule. But if you always know that your period 1 is going to be a direct study, and that's always going to be 7:45 to 9:10, then every other day, you can come in a little bit later and you can take care of your siblings. Or you leave every day, period 4 is your direct study and you get to leave earlier. So you get to go to your job earlier and you get to work as many more hours if that's the situation that works best for you. So we didn't have that flexibility with our prior schedule that we're really hoping to have this year. So we have longer blocks than we had in the previous in-person schedule. They're all 85 minutes. So we have consistency with that as well. All of the blocks are the same time periods, instead of like having one be 40 minutes, one be 90 minutes, one be 55 minutes, one be maybe 54 minutes, and never really sure how long they are. So there's a lot of consistency that we really liked with this schedule. And there's also something that I'm going to mention a little bit later, and that's what this flex block, which is the 8th period in here. So we're going to go into that in a little bit more depth, but this is kind of the basic skeleton. And the one thing that we didn't really come up with a firm decision on is whether this flex block here is going to be in the second block of the day, or it would be during the lunch block. So that's kind of the one thing that we, as a committee, we couldn't really come to a firm decision. We saw pros and cons for each of these options. And so we really wanted to make sure that we were giving these options to students and staff and caregivers, and waiting on a lot of feedback from them to determine what they thought would be the best option here. But again, this doesn't necessarily change kind of the basic outline of this schedule. And we also found that this led to a much greater number of hours on learning. So we are far above the 999 hours that are required by the state. Even with late entries and early releases, and with our prior schedule, I feel like we were always scraping for hours. And it was hard to have passing time during the day, and you would have to apparate from one class to another in order to get there by the time end of one class and the beginning of the other. So we are able to have passing time. We're able to have the appropriate amount of hours on learning. And again, as you can see, we're even above the 990 hours. So the rationale for our decisions in making this schedule with the alternating blue days and gold days, and also trying to run 8 blocks, so 7 periods of classes, and then this flex block is the 8th block, is that this year we ran 6 periods, and it just wasn't enough to support electives. Both students and staff deserve electives for a time during the day where they can explore their interests. And then connecting back to the Student Voice Project, where students were saying that they didn't have enough opportunities to explore career and college options that match their interests. That electives are ways that students can do that. And so we wanted to make sure that students have access to electives. So it was super important for us. It was one of those things we just had to have, which was 7 periods a day. So we could not return to 6 like we did this year. But at the same time, we don't have enough staff to run 8 academic courses. And so that's a result of budgeting concerns. We just don't have enough staff members to hold that many academic classes. We know that there are going to be concerns. We have already received concerns from students and staff members about the longer blocks. But we do feel that the block schedules will cut down on transitions. So you can actually be present in a class instead of thinking, okay, what's my next class? What's my homework for that class? Or from a teacher's perspective, what's the do now for that class? Or when is that class coming in? What time is this class ending? So it cuts down on kind of that stress of the go, go, go of the previous schedule, in-person schedule that we had. It cuts down on the number of classes per day, which means that it's going to cut down on the amount of homework that students are expected to complete every night. On stress, it's going to build in more time for deep learning. And then also going back to something that the Student Voice Project mentioned about kind of having and building in opportunities for community building in class, we feel like the longer blocks will provide more opportunities for just connecting with students, for allowing students to like come into the classroom and settle in without having to rush and be like, we have 40 minutes to get all of this stuff done today. And so I feel like this will just be a much more stable and productive and enriching environment for staff and for students. We also are hoping to address some of the concerns about the longer blocks with PD. So we're really hoping that we can get PD either at the end of this year or the beginning of next year that will support staff and using those longer periods to their best advantage so that we can support deep learning. And so we're not just taking a 40-minute class and plopping it into an 85-minute period, and we're really designing our lessons for that time period, which again, we couldn't really do because if you have 6 periods a day and each one is a different time, you're just kind of retrofitting your lesson into the time period that you have. So we feel like we really want PD to be able to help teachers take advantage of this opportunity and so that we can help support students with this and address some of those concerns. And then finally, one of the things that we most wanted about this schedule, and we knew this really early on, was something called a flex block. And so we wanted to build time in during the day for academic support, for enrichment, and we wanted a flex block. And in order to have a flex block, we had to run a block schedule. So then the question is, what is a flex block? So just basic definition of flex time or a flex block is a set time of the schedule. So either that second block of the day or lunch block, where students can go somewhere of their choosing. So they can go to teachers for additional academic support. They could go to a traditional like direct study where it's just a room where they're getting some work done. It could be a study session. It could be, going back to the Student Voice Project, a college workshop or a financial aid workshop, or it could be like a workshop on writing college essays. It could also be alternatively an enrichment period. So again, going back to the Student Voice Project where they were talking about mental and emotional health, and where they were talking about belonging and peer collaboration, where 58% of students don't feel like they belong to a school community. We saw these enrichment periods like going to an open gym or going on a walk outside together, or participating in a club or a sport or some enrichment activity, that this would be a way to build that community and to help students feel like they're a part of a community. So it's less of the push on get that work done and more of this is a space and time for us to focus on building relationships between students, between staff, and between staff and students. And so that was, I think that that's a really important context. The Student Voice Project has given us a really important context and data points to support the idea that this could be really helpful. But this is also something that has been going on since before the pandemic. I remember talking about this with my colleagues prior to the pandemic and how there have been past few years, staff and students have reported feelings of division and loss of a positive school culture, a lack of authentic connections between students and between staff and students. Staff feel like they don't have time to know one another. And so we feel like we need more time and space during the day itself and not an extra additional task where we are providing opportunities to create and build that that community and that culture. We also feel like enrichment opportunities like clubs or even discussion groups or circles could also be a way to provide opportunities that we can't with our current program of studies. So because of some of the staffing limitations that we have, we can't provide all of the electives that we would love to be able to provide for our students. And so we see these as ways that we could explore, different regions of the world together or different time periods together or have discussions about current events together. And so that a flex block could be a way to provide students with those resources and with those opportunities, even if we can't hire the staff necessary to support some of those elective classes. And we also just feel like this is an opportunity to provide students joy in their school day, which maybe they didn't have before. And we feel like, again, this is something I would have loved before the pandemic, but especially coming back from the pandemic where some students won't have been in the school building for ninth graders at all. And then some haven't been in for about a year and a half. I know coming in almost a year to the day after lockdown, coming in that first day was nerve-wracking. It was scary. Even now, I still feel a little unnerved being in the building, making connections with my peers and sometimes even students. We have to really focus on those relationship building experiences and focus on supporting our staff and our students and coming back from a truly traumatic time for some of our school members of our school community. So focusing on healing just has to be a focus of the entire year. And if we went back to our previous schedule, we just wouldn't be able to do that. It would just be go, 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 go. And we feel like having a flex block would be able to provide time and space during the day for all students and all staff to be able to come back into a school community and feel supported and feel like they are true and authentically part of that community. And so a flex would mean that for students, we're going to be partnering with, or I think we're hoping, but I hear we are partnering with a company called Efficiency, where they have an app that can take care of all of the logistics for us. And they can also gather a lot of data that will be really helpful in creating opportunities with the flex block. And so students can sign up for whatever they like. They can sign up for different sessions. They can repeat sessions that they've had for a flex block. But teachers can also sign students up. So if I know I have a student who needs to finish a project and they haven't come after school or they haven't signed up for extra support themselves, I might sign them up and say, you're coming to me for that first flex block of the day. And then they could go off and do an open gym for that second flex block. So they still have that opportunity for enrichment. So it's not just a punitive, you didn't finish that project kind of thing. Each teacher would be responsible for overseeing offerings during flex period, and those could be rotated on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. And we're also hoping to have flex leaders who will facilitate offerings and schedules and overseeing the app and analyzing any of the data that would be helpful in planning. It's also important to note that a flex period will not require any additional preparation. It is not an additional prep period, and it shouldn't require any additional planning. So it's meant to be support and enrichment and really a way to build community. And so we came up with a super basic list of what flex sessions could be based on feedback from staff and students and me just thinking about it sometimes in my free time. This is like the very beginning of what's possible for this list. So basically we could really start with academic support, college application help, college essay support. Here are different career options, and here are, presenting them to students like the Student Voice Project had mentioned before. Resume building, setting students up with how do you search for different types of jobs. Also thinking about support classes, so might have a writing lab and a math support or math lab. AP prep, you could have study sessions, PSAT or SAT prep, peer tutors, which have been a wonderful support for students this year and in previous years, could be really helpful in a flex block. And I know NHS does that really well. We could do classes, writing labs. I know a lot of students would love some additional writing support We could also do social and emotional enrichment, art time, makerspace, computer programming, yoga, social group offerings. And I know that the Student Voice Project had talked during a different presentation about circles and doing those during the day. And so that would be a really great time for students to do those types of activities like a circle, or it could just be a quiet room for study. But again, those are just like a very basic introductory list, and there are so many possibilities based on student input, based on teacher input. And so it would also be great to get the community involved and bring in community members. So there's, we have a lot of possibilities here. And I think that even that option, the fact that there are so many possibilities, is another way to build community, and finding those links and who has mutual interests and how can we help each other, I think will be a great addition to a really supportive and inclusive community. So our next steps is we're really looking to solicit staff interest in participating in a flex committee. So we're looking, we still have logistical questions that we need to answer. We still have things that need to be figured out. So we're looking to have a flex committee work in the spring and over the summer to iron out some of those details. And then we're looking into having 2 flex leaders for the school year. And they'll be the people who are, you know, putting the sessions into the Edficiency app, overseeing the data, seeing which sessions students aren't signing up for, et cetera. Adding new sessions and changing them based on, you know, college application season and financial aid information and that sort of thing. And so we are also looking for stipends to be provided. And I think based on the MOA that looks like that will be able to work out. And we're also hoping to advocate for PD for staff to facilitate the transition to the 85-minute periods. And again, there's, I think, concerns on both sides, staff and students and caregivers. But we do really feel like this is something that's worth the time and effort to really make this transition work for all parties here. And we think that based on the fact that a lot of other schools do this, that this could be really beneficial, especially if we have the training ahead of time. So those are the 2 big things that we're looking for. We also have some information about the organization that has the app. Don't play. Did that before too. Sorry. And we also, if anyone is interested, we have some more information about the rationale behind our decisions. And we also have some flex examples from other schools in Massachusetts, and then this one is in Chicago. So thank you so much.
All right, very good. Let's take some questions from the committee. I believe we should start with our student representative. What say you? What do you think?
Hi, okay. I'm trying to put together the words, but I am in love with the schedule. And even the finer details, I don't know if you've noticed or if it was intentional, but things like having the times of classes at like 9:10, where it used to be like 9:27. And I'd always sit in class wondering, like, when is this class over? I can't remember the time. And it's just so much more clean and organized. And I love all of the hard work and dedication. Thank you all so much. I do have, I think, 1 or 2 small questions that don't really matter that much. But one of them is, do we know if staff are going to be kind of told to have like those 5-minute breaks? Because I have noticed in COVID, we've been doing those 5-minute breaks. And they help just kind of maintain a classroom like community, but I don't know if that will be implemented or if that's considered.
Ms. Feiler?
I could actually jump in on that one because that's going to be part of the professional development. And Ms. Feiler, you can jump in to part of the PD that we're going to have Juliana is around the ways to set up those classes. Think of it as a 90-minute block. It's, I think it's a little less, but and chunking the lessons and allowing, as Ms. Feiler said in her outstanding presentation, by the way, that was outstanding, allowing for deeper, really diving deeper into curriculum and diving deeper into conversation. But it also allows for a teacher to set up their lesson in a way that is chunked in different areas. So there might be time for self-exploration, to group work and so forth within that time. And Ms. Feiler, if you want to piggyback on that, please feel free.
I think that I would love to get more support on that. I hear from you now that there are teachers that have 5-minute breaks. I don't think that that's a universal practice. I know that's not something that I incorporate into my classes. So I think that that's worth considering, is having that be a part of best practices.
Okay.
I love
Ms. Davis?
that. Even as a small idea, I think it's beneficial to consider. And my second question is just for flex blocks, do we know if students would be signing up for a whole week's worth or kind of more of a daily thing?
So that's something that I'm hoping the Flex Committee over the in the final weeks of the school year and then over the summer will be able to figure out. As a scheduling committee, we kind of went back and forth on what we wanted the answer to that to be. Like at one point we discussed you pick one for the quarter, and then we discussed for the month, and then the week, and then 2 weeks. We have the ability to change them for every Flex session. So like every gold day, you could theoretically have a different flex block. But again, kind of the guidelines for that, we're hoping the Flex Committee will be able to come up with a firm decision on over the summer.
Perfect, thank you.
That flexibility, Flex Committee, we were waiting till tonight's meeting to really set it together. We had some great, as Ms. Filer just talked about, the ratification of the vote was great, and this was the next step. And pun completely intended, there'll be some flexibility around that with our flex block, and I totally tried to use that pun. So we'll see. There's going to be a lot of great work that comes out of this committee as we end up the year, and then continue that work over the summer.
Yeah, let's stop there for a second. So again, the role of the school committee this evening, is it more an FYI, or are you asking us to vote on this?
I don't believe that there needs to be a vote. I'll defer to others in the committee. This is kind of a FYI opportunity to ask questions and inquire.
Okay. Superintendent, I saw a signature line though for.
Yeah, there's an MOA.
For the MOA part, correct? Because that part had to be negotiated.
Right. So there is a vote, or there isn't?
There's a vote on the MOA needs to be signed by the school committee and the union. But
so are you asking us to vote on that now as part of this, or is this separate somewhere else on the agenda?
I'm looking at the agenda. It's not.
I assume it would be here at this moment.
You know what?
Because in order for the flex schedule to be effective, you need an affirmative vote on the MOA, correct?
The MOA, the vote would come from the union, I believe, which.
Right, no, the union already ratified, right, but you need a vote of us now, I believe.
I'm not sure. I believe you're right, but
yes,
I would probably.
Yeah. Okay, so just so the committee knows, I'm going to go to Ms. Spadafora next, but the MOA that I looked at this afternoon has a signature line both for the Malden Education Association as well as the school committee.
Correct.
So my understanding is that the flex schedule may not be directly under our purview, but the memorandum of understanding is, which ties to the flex schedule. So if the memorandum of understanding is not voted affirmatively, then I think it negatively impacts the flex schedule. So with that being said, let's take some more questions. Let's go to Ms. Spadafora.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So one quick question on the flex schedule and just some understanding. And I think I've answered the question already in my own head. This couldn't be a graded class technically, but you talked about maybe students having to go meet with teachers because they're working on a project and maybe the work hasn't been completed. Wonder if the students like, I don't want to go. I'm just curious how that would work.
That's a great question. That's something that we kind of tossed around is, could we give, pass fail grade for flex? Could we give half credits? There are a whole bunch of things that we kind of tossed around. So I think that I don't have a great answer on what's going to happen in terms of enforcement if a student won't go to their flex session, what's going to happen. I think that it would kind of relate to if you don't go to class, then you could get a cut slip and you could get a detention. So I think it would work similarly in terms of like you need to be where you're supposed to be. So I could defer to Mr. Mastrangelo, but I think that that could be another question that the Flex Committee will be able to answer and iron out over the summer, because you're right, we're hoping that this won't be considered an actual class. So then what would be the ramifications if a student doesn't follow through on their end of the deal? And so I think that still needs to be up for discussion. So it's a good question.
And I think you're right, Ms. File. I think that's going to come out with this Flex Committee, but I also look at this opportunity, and I see Giuliano put in the chat, would it be handled similarly to teachers saying come after school? Well, it really wouldn't, in the sense that this is going to happen during the school day. And I think this lends itself towards family and caregiver outreach, both at the teacher and administrative level. And this is an opportunity, much like we did this year, we brought in the WIN block, the What I Need block during the remote piece. We have the support block in now, and we're going to kind of hone down that. And I think the expectation, and the other piece was, this is an 80-minute period of time. And we decided, the committee decided rather, that they didn't want to commit 80 minutes to one thing. We wanted to break it up into two periods. One was, we didn't want it to be that the negativity that may go with some students, oh man, his flex block, I have to do this. So we wanted to break it up. So there's 40 minutes for academic support as needed or requested. And there's another 40 minutes, and the phrase that I really am in love with is to find your joy within the school day. So the expectation, if the student needs that academic support and Ms. Filer reaches out to Chris Mastrangelo to come to the academic support, and he does it, Ms. Filer would let the house principals know, and we'd follow up on it, and that would lead itself into communication with caregivers as well.
Okay, Ms. Spadafora?
Thank you. Yes.
All right, other questions of the committee? Mr. Weldai.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I initially saw this afternoon, and I'm a middle school guy, so block scheduling and longer blocks gives me major agita, but it's worth a shot, right? Like you put a lot of effort into this and a lot of planning into this. I have a question about the MOA, but my one question about the presentation was, and it's small, but why not take the opportunity, channeling my Eden from public comment, to move things back a little and have start time at 8 o'clock and the day end at 2:30 versus the 7:45, 2:15? Like, would that throw off? I feel like pushing it to the 2:30 wouldn't necessarily interfere with the sports piece, but it might actually allow the kids to have a little bit more time in the morning, which is what I feel like we've been collectively talking about for a while.
I'm really glad you asked that question. I wrote that down when Ms. Garhart-Smith was talking. That wasn't in our purview. So I was actually on the committee a few years ago that was looking at changing the school start time. And what we came up against is that it is a school committee decision. It wasn't within our power to make those changes. I think that we've gotten feedback from students that they would prefer a later start time. When I was on that committee, I thought it was a good idea, and the students on the committee also thought it was a good idea. But it didn't work out in that committee. And as part of this committee this year, it just wasn't within our power to make those changes. So if that's something that the school committee would be interested in pursuing, I would be absolutely supportive of that.
Let me stop you there. Mr. Weldai, let me stop you there just for a second, if you wouldn't mind.
Sure.
Indulge me. Because that was something that we had worked on, and I thought the results came back different than what we thought they were going to come back. And that's why the school committee did not act on it. Is that right, Superintendent?
That's absolutely correct. Overwhelmingly, the students preferred the earlier start, which was exactly the opposite of what we thought.
Yeah, because Mr. Weldai, we were set to do it. I mean, I think most of us on this call pushed for it, but once the students spoke, we retreated.
I would wonder whether or not after the past year, those results would be the same. My question was less about us making a policy decision, and I'm wondering whether or not, is it just within the contractual teacher day, can you make those moves without needing to, if you're not changing the, what are the contractual hours of an educator? Can we play around within that?
Well, that's why we landed as well, Adam. That's why we landed on the 7:45 to 2:15. We stayed within the contractual, because right now it's 7:30 arrival time with the 2:30 dismissal time and 2:45 on certain days, I believe. So we kind of had to stay within that. And the other thing, and I was on that, Michelle and I were both on that committee. One of the things we realized was Malden at the 7:45 had a later start. A lot of those districts that were changing were like a 7:10, a 7:15, a 7:20 start. And they were shifting to like an 8 or 7:45 or an 8. And we were already kind of in that area. So that's one of the things we kind of landed upon, I think. But short answer, 7:45 to 2:15 is our current, as Ms. Filer just said, so we just stayed within that foundation.
All right, thank you. My only other question, and less of a question, more of a comment on the MOA piece in particular was, it looks good. My only question would be whether or not, just so that everyone's connected to everyone else, that we ran the 2 stipend pieces by Tony Mertz, and whether or not Superintendent O'Terry, I looked at the PD piece on the 30th and the 31st. I know you're transitioning right now with Superintendent-elect Noriega, whether or not we should, be setting aside the PD time before we have a chance to figure out what that PD is going to be. But, if the superintendent feels like that's okay and that it's not going to interfere with future plans, and if the stipended piece has already been okayed by central office, then it looks good.
So,
yeah, the stipended piece has been cleared. And as far as the PD, I'm not sure where we stand on that yet. I know that Mr. Mastrangelo has a committee that's developing that. They've been stipended, I believe, over the summer. Is that correct?
I worked with Dr. Chase and I worked, and we're going to transition towards the new administration in this sense, but we're looking at the possibility of providing optional PD over the summer and tying that into our connection with the Bar Foundation to stipend that for faculty, and then building that into our beginning of the year PD. And then I can tell you at the school level, we're planning on all of our PD we have our early releases that are building based are going to be professional development around this, leading in for minimally for the first half of the year. I think some teachers made great strides this past year with planning the longer blocks, but those were virtual or hybrid. This is much different. This is going to be a much different animal in the sense that everybody's in front of us now. So it's not similar in that sense. I mean, the timeframes is similar. Maybe some strategies within those 85 minutes is similar. But when you're having the kids in front of you, it's going to be much different. So we are, at least administratively, the Malden High School admin team is committed to setting aside a lot of opportunity for faculty. Again, and we're really honing in on trying to find some times over the summer for the optional piece too. So, like I said, I've had some initial conversations with Dr. Chase around that, but I know we're in an interesting time as we're transitioning, and we're going to continue those conversations during the transition.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Sure, absolutely. Other questions? Ms. Davidson.
Hi, thank you, Mr. Chair. I was wondering if we could revisit the later start time. I do have one question. Is it logistically possible for us to make that change this year if we were to gather either survey results or even start a committee within the high school? I'd be happy to do that. Is it possible, or is it too late for next school year?
Never say never. So when did we do that last, Ms. Filer? Was it 2018?
2019, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah.
My recommendation would be in the beginning of next year, if you want to task a committee or task force with students, community members, caregivers, and faculty, and revisit that. That would be my recommendation, and gather data, survey students and families, and use that data next year to develop that. I think that the point was made earlier that given what we've gone through with the pandemic and starting later, there's maybe more of an appetite for that. I do know that Mr. Conifrey on the athletic end, there is a major impact. There is certainly a kind of a point of no return on a dismissal time that really makes interscholastic athletics particularly burdensome at the high school, but I don't think we're approaching that yet if we move to 15 minutes, but I think that needs to be worked out. One of the takeaways from the last survey and task force was we had a number of students that needed to leave by 2:15 because of work obligations. I think that was the mayor was referring to was the opposite of what we anticipated, and that really was kind of a a strong statement by our staff, students rather, around start times, that they needed work was a major priority for them.
Okay. Very good. Ms. Davidson, one more, and then we're going to move, okay, to the rest of the agenda. Go right ahead.
So can I ask, when was that survey last put out for students? I heard 2019. Is that the correct day?
I believe it was the 2018-2019 school year.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Hey, you know what, Ms. Davidson, they already have the system's already in place. I mean, maybe you just look back as to what they used and how they used it. Maybe you can work with the principal to get that back up and running. Because I think the school committee, I don't want to speak for all of them, but I know there's always been an interest in this. So maybe it is time to reset and see what the
I think I'll look into it for sure.
Yeah. Did you have something else you were about to say?
Nope, that's all for today.
Okay.
Or for now.
Yeah. So why don't you look into it and then circle back with us, and you know, maybe we can assign a school committee member to help if something comes together around it. Okay.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right, everybody. So Mr. Weldai, to the rest of the committee. So we've heard from the team. I think we take it under advisement. During executive session, we'll take up the proposed MOU under item 2, which is collective bargaining units for A, B, and C. So does that make sense to everyone?
Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much, Principal Mastrangelo and the rest of the team. And we'll keep you apprised later on this evening as to what transpires on the proposed MOU, okay?
Thank you, everyone.
All right, thank you. Back to our superintendent. Where do you want to go next, Sue?
I think we want to take up the dedication of the Ferryway Cafeteria in memory of Mr. Paul Abare, who died this past school year, longtime educator in Malden. His height and stature was only surpassed by his character. I think many of us would agree. He was a wonderful man. I did not have him as a teacher in a classroom. I frankly had him as a teacher and a mentor when I was a member of the YMCA. Mr. Abare was a longtime member of the YMCA. He dominated the basketball court, but he dominated your life with advice. He was a true mentor and role model to every young person in Malden that belonged to the Y. And I think his impact here in Malden was immense. And Mr. Champa would like to speak on this. I believe Mr. Iovino would as well.
Let's have Mr. Champa, and then we'll go to Mr. Iovino.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Superintendent Oteri and School Committee, for allowing me to speak on behalf of the Ferryway staff and the Abare family. I came to Malden in 2009, and my job was to replace Mr. Abare. And Tom DeVito was principal at the time, and he said to me, "You have big shoes to fill," and I had not met the man yet. He's 6'6" with size 15 shoes. So he was definitely right about that. To give you a little history, Paul graduated Malden High in 1969. He was captain of the basketball team that year. I graduated North Adams in 1973, was captain of the basketball team then, and started his career in Malden Public Schools as a substitute teacher at that point. He worked at the old Salemwood School. He worked at the Brown School. He worked at the Belmont School, and eventually at the Ferryway School, where he was the assistant principal for, I want to say, close to 10 years under Principal Tom DeVito. My experience with Paul is that he is a true gentleman in every sense of the word. I was lucky enough to meet him that summer after I replaced him, and he came to school a couple days a week all summer long to show me the ropes, to show me how he did things, what was the expectation of the Ferryway School and of Malden. He showed me the ins and outs, and at that point, I was very fortunate to have him in that role. And then, as luck would have it, he, for a number of reasons, spent the next 2 years working in the Ferryway School as an assistant principal with me, and became every bit a mentor and a great friend to me. We asked our staff and friends of the Ferryway to send in, 1 or 2 words that would describe what Paul is. And no one could do it in 1 or 2 words, but I have 2 passages that they were both in the letter that we sent to the school committee, but I'd like to read them and credit where they came from. Karen Swartout, our nurse, said Paul was a man of impeccable character and grace. He loved people. He loved being an educator. He had a way of making anyone he came in contact with feel special. He was kind, he was respectful, and he truly cared. When he asked you how you were, he really wanted to know. He was fair. He was not quick to judge. He was an inspiration who made you want to do better and to be a better person. He gave his students the benefit of the doubt and had a unique, impartial way of getting to the bottom of a situation, so all were heard and treated fairly. He was often heard telling students to make wise decisions. He was 6'5.5". He appeared intimidating, but he was far from that. He was called the gentle giant around the Ferryway School. And one other one I want to share, and this one, if I could write this well, it really says everything about Paul you need to know. It's from Ryan McGuire, who's a 7th grade teacher at the Ferryway School. And before the meeting started, I heard some people kind of commenting to what this says. If it were possible, I would dedicate every speck of mortar this school has built with to Paul Abare. He was truly the man who held the school and the staff together throughout all his years here. If there was ever been an example of how an educator and administrator should act, carry himself, and interact with students, staff, and parents, it was Paul. Without question, he was the most professional and respectful person I have ever worked with, and set a bar that most, if not all of us, can only aspire but never reach. As a clueless first-year teacher, I was lucky enough to have Paul as my mentor, and I will always remember thinking, that is what a real educator looks like. Paul made you want to be better, just by being himself. This exercise actually makes me smile because it reminds me of when Paul would set out to find the truth behind a specific incident. He would pass out paper to the kids and tell them to write down what they saw and heard. He would sift through the responses and inevitably discover the truth through the patterns that emerged. In this case, however, the stories are all similar. The pattern is clear, and the truth is the wonderful man we are remembering. Paul is dearly missed by the Ferryway community every day, but his memory and legacy remain at the core of what the Ferryway is and will continue to be. And I would just add that people that didn't work with him, when they read all of this that went around, really feel like they missed out on meeting a tremendous educator, a tremendous person, and a person of character, and someone we all do aspire to be like. Thank you very much.
Very well said. Mr. Iovino.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to add to that, if I could, from 1987 until 1990, when I was assistant principal at the Lincoln Middle School, I was fortunate enough to have Paul Abare on staff, and he was the leader of the 6-7 grade combination team. He did an outstanding job, as I'm sure you all heard him capable of doing. The only thing I can add to what Mike said is that, and it's been said so often, but it bears repeating, Paul was always a gentleman and very much of a gentleman. And I would be honored to place before this committee a motion to name the cafeteria at the Ferryway School in honor of Paul Abare.
Very good. So there's the motion, seconded by Mr. Froyo, or Mr. Drummy, rather. Mr. Drummy, any questions on that? Mr. Weldai?
Just to echo, I think Principal Champa, I think it's safe to say that you make Paul proud. I'm sure he was, and we are indebted to you for leading the Ferryway as you are, and I think it's in Paul's spirit, but I think Paul's the type of person, like Lenny said, that we all try to emulate as school leaders. And I'm glad she said something at the outset, because my comment was going to be that Paul's legacy will live on not only through the impact that he made, but through his daughter, Julie, who still today is an outstanding educator at the Linden, who's sharing that same love with her students just on the other side of the city. So, reading the comments, and Mike, thank you so much for sharing that with us, because that was my favorite part of your letter, was the comments from all the staff people, which, if you knew Paul, and I got to know Paul a little bit, certainly nowhere near as much as a lot of my colleagues here, but it brought him to life. Yeah, it was meaningful, and it was really sweet. And so I look forward to voting for this because just like Mike said at the outset, we should be naming the building after him, I think. But I'm proud to vote for this.
All right, anybody else? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? The ayes have it, that carries unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Champa. And
Thank you all very much.
keep us apprised of the ceremony.
Yeah, we're going to look to do something in the fall, in an evening.
Okay, very
Invite a
good.
lot of people back. I had already spoke to Mr. DeVito and he'd come back, and looking forward to it.
All right, very good. All right, back to our superintendent.
Sure, at this time, I'd like to turn this over to Assistant Superintendent for Student Services and Special Education, Pam McDonald, to do the special education report.
I am just gonna hopefully share my screen. It's gonna work. So I'm not sure it's going to work tonight because I have a new computer that's not quite set up. I know a lot of you have it, unless Kelly, you on? Do you have access to it?
Yes, I do. Just give me a second and I'll go in and find it.
I had some computer issues and my computer died. Now I have a new one and the Zoom is not really working for me. It's not set up. But let me just, so I have put together a small presentation tonight, and I'm going to start by talking about ESY. So our ESY, I'm going to wait, see if Kelly can get it for me. Sorry.
I have it. Adam, is there a way that you can have me share my screen?
It should be, yeah, all participants, you're good to go.
Okay.
Thanks, Kelly.
Hang on, let's see. Okay. Just give me a second here.
So we are while Kelly's doing that, we are well underway of our planning for ESY. Kelly, if you want to go to the second slide. So planning is well underway for ESY. We are planning on in-person. We're very thrilled to offer in-person ESY this year because I know that wasn't done here in Malden. So we're thrilled for that. We do have remote options for families that would like it. They can get a hold of their team chair. Currently, and these numbers have actually been updated since I sent this presentation to the school committee members. We're up to 250 students attending. There is still time if parents if their child has ESY in their IEP and they have not opted in, they can still get a hold of their team chair. We encourage you to do that as soon as possible for busing reasons, but we will make every accommodation possible moving forward. Additionally, we have over 100 students coming in for compensatory services. Our K-8 is in good shape. The high school, we have quite a few kids coming back for credit recovery of our special ed students for compensatory services, and we're now really focusing on the ELC. We're reaching out to those families to see how many of those children want to come back for comp services over the summer, and we're working hard on staffing. I will say, as far as extended school year, staffing right now is our biggest obstacle. So, but we're working really hard, and I have to give a shout out to the special ed office staff and program managers who are working hard to finish our staffing. The next thing, Kel? The next thing that we're working on is we've started in the office doing a little bit of strategic planning for student services. So we looked at a few pieces of information from district staff and special ed staff, from different just conversations and things that I've discussed my year so far in the district, almost, not quite. I've talked to lots of parents. I've gone to some CPAC meetings. We've done a review of IEP records, a financial analysis of a lot of our programming and where we're spending our money as far as resources in the special ed department. I've looked at the caseloads and the resources allocation. I've reviewed student achievement data and findings from DESE. Most notably, we did just finish our tiered focus monitoring. We do not have the official report back, but it is scheduled to come back any day. But I did want to give you an update because I did have an exit interview with them where they verbally told me some information about it, and that's what I've based my goals off of on the next page. We also did get a recent determination of needs assistance by DESE, and I use that as well. That rubric has a couple of points on it, and one of them is the places that we fell down on the rubric were attendance as well as our dropout rate and our graduation rate. So you'll see that on the next slide in the goals, reflected in the goals. So one of the things I wanted to look at is the alignment of resources, staffing, and training in order to provide a high quality and robust educational program for students with special needs, reduction of the dropout rates and chronic absentee rates for students with special needs, and increase the graduation rate. I think this is one of the most important goals we'll have in the coming years because I think it speaks volumes about where we are with our special needs population. Our dropout rates and our absentee rates are not great right now, so I really want to target that moving forward. I want to create a new system and procedures around the IEP compliance piece and how we send it out and how we monitor it and the process it goes through when it's developed to ensure effective compliance with the regulations. I want to look at the reduction in the frequency and duration of students that are educated away from their peers. One of the things, if you look at our numbers, we have a lot of kids either included or completely sub-separate. We don't have that middle category of kids that are partially included for part of the day, but then take a step back when they need to. So I want to look at that and how we can increase our inclusion rates, because we do have a high number of kids that we keep sub-separate for a lot of the day. And we know the more you're away from the gen ed, the less likely your outcomes are going to be. And then lastly, in tandem with that, I'd like to increase the effectiveness and diversity of co-teaching, because I think if we can do a better job of offering co-teaching to more of our sub-separate students, then we can include them more. And I think we have a great staff and they do a great job. I think one of the things, if you go back up to number one, if you look at the resources, our caseloads are a little bit all over the place, and we do have the Forest deal. That is a very heavy special ed population, which makes it hard to increase our inclusion rates. So that's where those are my 5 goals. And at this point, and they're draft goals right now, I'm going to put together sort of a stakeholder team and really delve into if these are the right ones. And also, what are the bullet points under it that we need to do to meet these goals and to show that we are making progress on them. So that's kind of where I am with the strategic plan for the department. So it's a little odds and ends. If you go on the parent resource page, if you have a question or a concern and you're not sure who to turn to, there is a little form that you fill out, and it kind of just says who you are, what school you're at, and what your concern is, and we will find someone to get back to you in a timely manner. So if you don't know where to turn to, that's a resource for families to get a hold of our office. We have an updated special education manual that is in the works. It is just about finished. We're going to look at it with some of our stakeholders, hopefully over the summer, and then that'll be up and running. The ELC registration, I'm happy to say, is underway. We right now are doing priority registration for families that were there last year. I believe that's up on June 11th. We also have some nice partnering with the YMCA to offer after school programming. So we're super excited about that. And I also just really want to take a moment to mention 2 outgoing program managers who've been with the district for a very, very long time. Heather Whittington and Monique Boudreau, who have worked tirelessly on behalf of the students in this district. And I really just wanted to take a moment to wish them the best of luck as they move on. And lastly, we had a great celebration last week where we opened up our new handicap accessible playground. I wanted to end on this note because it was a great day and it's a great park for the kids. It has a wheelchair ramp and there's a like a swing slide for kids in wheelchairs. So it's awesome to see this in Malden, and special thanks to Tony Mertz who put it together and got it off the ground and built for us. So I just wanted to end on a high note, and that's all I have for tonight. And thank you to Kelly for rescuing me.
Questions? Any questions of the committee? Ms. Luong.
Okay, Mr. Chairman. Quick question. How were the students, the 100 spots for the summer program that were come from compensatory services, how were they notified, or how were they chosen, or how was those 100 slots?
So those came out of conversations with families and parents through team meetings, as well as just one-on-one conversations. Any parent that is looking for comp services that has not heard or thinks that they should still have them, they can reach out to their team chair. They can reach out to our office. We are really committed to providing those to any of our students that feel that they need it. So please, if anyone out there feels like they need some services over the summer for their child with special needs, get in touch with us and we will see what we can do about providing some services. And also the other thing is, I know there are families that did not want it over the summer because they wanted a break. We have committed to most of those that have reached out that we will do some tutoring or some other services in the fall.
Okay, and one more question. So the summer before last, we had a more extensive summer program. So of course, COVID hit, we weren't able to service the children that didn't have it in their extended school year, but every summer would be then brought in to remediate and to give them extra help. Are those kids on our radar? How did that work?
So I think most of those students are the students that we've invited back for comp services as well, because those are the students that traditionally over the summer, they might not have had a program because they didn't necessarily require it on their IEP because of regression issues, but we did feel like they needed a little something more over the summer. So my understanding was those students were invited back. So we targeted them also in the comp services section, because that's going to be like for comp services for a lot of kids. I mean, it's all different. Some kids are getting extra speech during the summer. Some are getting OT. We have some students that are going to stay for a half an hour longer to get speech. So those students that traditionally had been offered summer services and weren't last year, we put them in a tutoring group with some other kids that were getting comp services. So most of those students were included in the comp services tutoring offerings.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Other questions? Mr. Weldai?
Just very quickly, I really appreciated seeing the proposed goals for the strategic plan. I think it's nice. It's super transparent. The fact that you're thinking about it now and getting feedback on those goals and then building it into the plan. And it seems to match up with what you've been consistently telling us about what you're looking to do, and also what the schools are doing with their work with special ed. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Now back to our superintendent.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll go through my report. I'll try to summarize because I know we've got a lengthy agenda still ahead of us. First, just want to talk about the heat. We're in a heat advisory right now. I do want to say our air conditioning is running very strongly in all 7 of our school buildings. We had a little glitch this morning at the Early Learning Center, but by 8:15, we were cold air coming through those ducts. Eric Rubin in Public Facilities have responded to any issue that we've had. Just want to make sure that our staff keep the windows closed, because when they're opened, it makes the air conditioning run continually, causing the condenser to, causing the chiller to have condensation, which will eventually, if run long enough, freeze the unit, which will have no AC. Just as you remember, our air conditioning system was rigorously tested last fall, and we exceed the recommendation for COVID on air movement, and we have the highest filtration systems that are allowed, and we change our filters ahead of the scheduled maintenance. So we're really good on that. On May 18th, the state dropped the mask mandate for outdoor school activities, including recess and interscholastic sports. In terms of recess, we took a little more cautious approach and implemented that on May 21st. So our principals and their staffs could make it as safe a transition as possible. We worked with Chris Webb, the public health director, and our director of nursing, Patty Tremendozzi, to secure 6 vaccination clinics the week of May 24th. We did 6 schools, 2 per day from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. To vaccinate anyone ages 12 and up. We vaccinated nearly 800 people. We opened it up to families of our students, and the second dose will be distributed next week. They have appointment times all set up. With the relaxing of COVID sanctions, we were able to have some of our traditional spring activities, particularly here at the high school with National Honor Induction, Senior Scholarships and Awards Night, and culminating with the prom held on Friday, May 28th in the Malden High School courtyard. It looked amazing. Big thank you to the mayor and his office, DPW, Public Facilities, our custodial crew, phenomenal co-advisors this year, Ms. Laidley and Ms. Corcoran, and Principal Mastrangelo and his team. I also want to publicly thank the restaurants who donated food for us. That would be El Porto, the Mexican restaurant on Highland Avenue, the Dockside, Pearl Street Station, Aviva Trattoria, 110 Grill, All Seasons Table, and Donut Villa. They were wonderful community partners on this. Yesterday, we had high school graduation. Beautiful, albeit hot, scorching day at McDonald Stadium. We had confirmed over 375 diplomas. Some of the highlights from the class of 2021 include 3 Posse Scholarship winners who we've introduced to you and a Questbird Scholarship recipient. 23 of our Bunker Hill early college graduates, including 7 of those with full associate's degrees. 37% of our class of 2021 have taken at least one college course while at Malden High School. Almost half of the class of 2021 has a GPA of 3.0 or higher, 200 out of our 409 seniors. 7 have completed all the components of the Advanced Placement Capstone Diploma. We have 80% of our students reporting that they will be attending college in the fall. 1.5% joining the military, 1.5% going directly into a trade or a union, 3.5% of our students doing a volunteer year or gap year, 12% directly entering the workforce, and 1.5% choosing another path. It's a great, I think, tribute to our faculty and our administration at Malden High School. This is wonderful news. The Linden School Council voted unanimously to disband the requirement of wearing uniforms beginning for the 2021 school year. We have been approached by Harvard Medical School, Brigham and Women's Hospital, and the Youth Development in Diverse Contexts at Fordham University on a project that explores racial discrimination experiences, discrimination responses, and COVID-19 related stress on Asian American families, specifically Chinese American parents and adolescents. This will be a 3-year study, a data collection that will eventually provide us with recommendations for proactively addressing racism, workshops to facilitate a more inclusive school climate, and student opportunities to participate in the development of an anti-racist intervention and civic engagement. I've spoken with Superintendent-elect Ms. Noriega Murphy, and she is committed to this. We've sent our letter of intent, and we'll see if we're selected and if the project will be funded. We will hear on that later this summer. Summer programming, there is a tremendous amount of that, beginning with Title I, incoming kindergarten, and identified students needing support. We have a lot of programming this summer, Title III programming, and the high school has many programs as well. The high school will have the Adventures in Academics program that is for incoming 9th graders. There'll be a pre-orientation week for incoming 9th graders as well. The target audience is any incoming 9th grader from our 8th grades that needs to transfer, high need students that transfer into other grades. This will be approximately 100 students. It's a new initiative, and we're hoping to get as many as we can. It's a 3-morning program in July. Summer school registration at Malden High School begins June 28th. The program, high school will run, summer school will run from July 6th through August 5th. It will be a Monday through Thursday program. There'll be no classes on Monday, July 5th. Malden High School Math Summer Enrichment Program. It's an opportunity for students joining Malden High School in grades 9 through 12 to continue their learning of math in the summer, to prepare them for the their next course, help them change levels from college prep to honors, or complete an entire course to earn credit. This will be a combination of synchronous and asynchronous work, and will be facilitated by Malden math teachers. It'll be virtual, completely free of for all participants, and will run from July 6th through August 5th. Ferryway School is offering a summer enrichment program geared for kids kindergarten through 8. That will run from June 28th to July 29th, Monday through Thursday, from 8:30 to 12:30. Summer reading, that will be given out in grades 6 through 12, beginning this week and next week. The high school, we'll be working with our K-8s and our high school librarians, as well as the Malden Public Library, to ensure access to the titles. They've been working to identify free ebooks and audiobook versions of the text as well. The public library is gathering up materials for summer reading to make sure our students have equitable access. Have any further questions, please do not hesitate to contact Greg Hurley, our Director of Humanities. The reading for grades K to 5, that reading list will be distributed on the last day of school for each student with their report cards. There are suggested readings which were created in conjunction with the Malden Public Librarians, Malden Public School Librarians, and Malden Public Library's Children's Librarian, Rebecca Smith. Copies of the books will be available at the library in paper copy and online. You may have seen the Boston Globe article on absenteeism, and it noted that the Ferryway School had a spike in absenteeism. That was for this year. Daily attendance while remote was taken in a homeroom period at the Ferryway School. During remote, if you missed homeroom, you were marked absent. If you showed up in your other classes, you were marked virtually present. What had happened was the absence at the beginning of the day overrode the virtual presence later on in the day. It was brought to our attention. I contacted the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education and said that we actually don't have that high of absenteeism. We are in the process of rectifying that for end of year reports. So essentially, any student who is present for 2 or more classes, or more than half a day or more, is considered present. That's a DESE guideline and statute. So we will be converting many of those absences into really what would be a tardy and resulting in a present. So we'll be working on that over the next several weeks. Have an important technology update from Natalia Brennan. All the hotspots that we've issued will must be returned because the unlimited data is being freezed for July and August. I will be collecting the devices from students at the Early Learning Center. Students at the ELC will no longer need access to Chromebooks for the 21-22 school year, as we hope to return to a more normal school year. Students in grades 5 through 8 will need to return their devices, as some of them are aging out and will need to be refreshed. All students in grades 5 through 8 will return their devices during the last week of school. Students participating in summer programming will have access to a device provided by the summer program. Conversations are ongoing about whether students can take their device home for the next school year. We have 1,600 Chromebooks coming into the district to update some of our older devices. Students in grades 12 return their devices beginning on June 3rd. So who will be keeping their devices? Students currently in grades K to 4, will keep their device and return it upon the first day of school, which will then be housed in their upcoming classroom. For the school year 21-22, students will not be taking their devices home daily. That's for grades K to 4. Devices will be kept in the classroom cart. They'll have an assigned device that will be specific to that student. And also students in our grades 9 through 11 will keep their device over the summer. As we get closer to fall, we'll offer tech check-ins for students grades K to 4 and 9 through 11 who want to make sure their device is ready and updated for the upcoming school year. Other technology news from Ms. Brennan. Every K to 4 classroom will be getting a 65-inch ViewSonic viewboard. These are large touchscreen displays that are on wheeled carts. They'll be arriving before July 1 and be ready to go for September. With the purchase, our vendor is also providing 8 hours of professional development to train staff on how to use these boards. Also, every member of Unit A, that's our educator staff, our teachers will be turning in their Chromebook in September and will be assigned a laptop. Docking stations are being deployed in classrooms so that teachers can use projectors, document cameras, copiers, and other devices with their new laptop. The devices have arrived and we are currently making a plan to prep classrooms with that. We have an athletic update. The fall 2 season was successful and an enjoyable season where student athletes were able to create memories, connect with their teams and coaches. Seniors were honored at senior nights for all of our sports teams, and parents were allowed to attend those special events. Senior 3-sport athlete and Posse scholar Abby Tang was honored by the Boston Herald and Boston Globe as an all-scholastic in swimming. 3-sport athlete David Lombardi continued to add to his accolades as a recipient of the annual Boston Globe Foundation Richard J. Phelps Scholarship. David will be traveling south to High Point University in North Carolina this fall. On Senior Scholarship Night, the Golden Tornado Club awarded several scholarships to deserving graduating seniors. Male and female athletes of the year were Michaela Preston and David Lombardi. After graduation, Michaela is off to complete boot camp, a requirement for her commitment to the United States Armed Forces and the Army Reserves. And then in the fall, she will be attending the School of Nursing at Penn State University. Lastly, the spring season is underway with baseball, softball, boys and girls outdoor track, boys and girls tennis, and boys and girls lacrosse. Central office has mostly moved, except for yours truly. Ms. Durai and Kenny Tran, our data analyst, moved to 110 Pleasant Street. The parent information is there as well. Special education department, business department, and all of our directors have relocated to 110. Very shortly, the superintendent's office and her support staff, Ms. Noriega Murphy, will be up there as well. We sent out that SNAP survey in May, right after our last school committee meeting in 7 languages through MassPIRG and DTA to solicit families for what are the obstacles for them to registering to SNAP. I expect that this will continue in the summer and the fall, as we will hopefully be able to get more of our families onto SNAP, and that will also help the district, as they will be automatically pre-qualified and registered as low income, which will impact our Chapter 70 money from the state. The food truck, which we've talked about for several months, has arrived. And it was put to use yesterday during graduation. We used it to transport about 25 cases of cold water to our graduates who are on the very hot McDonald's Stadium turf, about 150 degrees if you're counting in Fahrenheit with that heat. So we had cold water for all of our students and the staff. The truck is great. It arrived last Thursday from Buffalo, New York. It is wrapped with the Malden logo with Nedlin the lion coming out of the tornado, and it is in its full blue and gold pride. The truck has both cooling capacity and warming capacity. This will be a great asset to Malden to help combat food insecurity, and we're really proud to have this. We have a wildlife update. You may have seen on Channel 5. Tilda the turkey gave birth to 11 babies right outside the Malden High School courtyard. One of those in a year that was really fraught with difficulties and uncertainties and all sorts of bad things. This was kind of a fun thing, right in the middle of all the traffic and bustle of our students coming back and going in and out. We had a turkey sitting on her eggs. They hatched, and as our animal control officer in the city said, within 3 days they'll be gone. They were here. They walked around the courtyard as the prom preparation was going on and disappeared the next day. So it did make the Channel 5 news. Mr. Mastrangelo and his team sent that there. If you're a Trivial Pursuit fan, the baby turkeys are called poults. And they somewhere in Malden, not sure where, but they were awfully cute to watch. And then there's the last day for students and staff. So on Thursday, June 17th is the last day for students in Malden with an 11 a.m. dismissal. It is a full day for staff. Friday, June 18th is the Juneteenth holiday. All schools and offices will be closed. And on Monday, June 21st, there is professional development for all staffs of Unit A, B, and C. It is, and that professional development will end at noon. Also during the week, June 16th and 14th, 15th, and 16th, we'll be doing at each school a Juneteenth flag raising. I want to thank Malden Corps for their assistance with this, and those will be really nice ceremonies. There's a wonderful script that's going to be read, and we'll have full participation with our schools in that. So that concludes my report. Mr. Mayor?
Any questions? Mr. Iovino?
Not a question so much. It's just a comment for the superintendent, and just a shout out, a special shout out, I think, is in order for Malden High School, for their teachers, for their entire staff, the paraprofessionals, the counselors. They did a dynamite job in this class. Those youngsters ought to be very proud of themselves for what they've accomplished in a pandemic year. The numbers that are going on to college, the numbers of advanced placement scholars, with those with honors and those with distinctions. They're to be congratulated. And also a congratulations to those 7 youngsters who are going in to serve the United States military. I thank them for their service, and may God grant them safety on their safe return home to families and loved ones. But high school, they did a great job this year.
All right, let's stay with you, Mr. Iovino, for space and enrollment.
Okay. As of this past Friday, the school enrollment is 6,242. That includes pre-K right up to grade 12. That is an increase from April of 53 youngsters. So the trend continues upward. In kindergarten applications, there are 331 applications currently. According to Mrs. Federico, that's about average, very decent for this pandemic year, which is different in many respects. She expects that number to increase significantly as they begin their placements during the month of July. Thank you very much.
Hearing none, over to Ms. Spadafora for the Budget Subcommittee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So it's that favorite time of year, I think, for all of us. And I'm going to hand it over to Superintendent Oteri and our finance manager, Ms. Martz. But before I do that, just a few points of interest when it comes to the budget. I will say I am, and I can't speak for my peers, but I am pleasantly surprised and pleased that we were able to pull off a level service budget versus level funded. And for those that are not familiar with the difference between the two, the level service budget is a budget that appropriates the amount of money that's needed to maintain a level of service that's currently being delivered, whereas a level funded appropriates the same amount of money as the prior year. So last year, we had a level funded budget. This year, we're level serviced, and our budget is 76.057 million, which is a approximate 2.5% increase. And that really takes into account. So I'm very happy that we have no cuts in this budget. If anything, we're actually adding more jobs within our system. And Mr. Weldai and the equity subcommittee, I know we've talked about this a lot, about making our schools more equitable, and this is exactly what this budget does. We have added more positions to make sure that all of our schools are equitable. Some of them may have had one music teacher while another school had 2. One may have had one art teacher versus another school that had 2. And Ms. Martz has worked diligently to make sure that our K through 8s are equitable in this budget. And that includes adding an additional music teacher at the BB, an additional music teacher at the Forestdale, a music teacher at the Linden, an art teacher at the Linden, a music teacher at the Salem Wood, an art teacher at the Salem Wood. That also includes adding another grade 2 teacher at the Ferryway, an ELL teacher at the BB, a middle school science teacher at the Forestdale, a middle school social studies teacher at the Forestdale. So I think we are on a really great track coming out of a pandemic. I'm not going to say we're where we need to be. And that really comes down to the federal government and our Chapter 70 funding formula. And we all know that that's something that we could be doing better at legislative wise to make sure that we're getting the funds needed for our city. But I would like to point out as well, not only are we meeting the needs of the city, that our central office team has worked diligently when it comes to garnering grants for us. And when I look at what our fiscal year 20 grants were at 4 million compared to fiscal year 21, 8 million, and now we're going into fiscal year 22 at 11 million in grants. They're working really hard to get the money that that we need to sustain that level of service to provide. So I don't want to sit here and talk all night. If you may, Superintendent Oteri or Ms. Martz.
I think you summed it up pretty well. Why don't you make the motion so we can get it properly before us?
Absolutely. So I would love to make a motion to approve the fiscal year 21-22 budget that has been provided to us.
Seconded by Mr. Iovino. So questions of the members? Soup, do you want to add anything to it?
I think Ms. Spadafora said it well. I think we looked at this budget was approached through the lens of equity with what our budget was. We've addressed a number of them at the K-8 with the addition of the 10 staff members. This will be a prelude, hopefully going forward, where we will continue to address this right up through the district. I know that when some of the additional federal money comes in over the summer, there is a plan for that to address some needs, student support needs. I think some of the presentation that we heard earlier with the high school, some of that can be addressed with some of that funding as well. So I think we're really happy that we're looking at this as the best way to support our students for their achievement and their social emotional well-being.
Very good. So if there are no questions, I just want to add one thing, Ms. Spadafora, that the committee, if you do see Ron Hogan or Chuck Rannigan from our finance team, they also deserve a pat in the back because, as you probably know by now, it takes two to tango. And Tony, Ron, and Chuck work really, really well together and started this back in December, if I remember correctly. So I do want to make sure I publicly thank them as well.
Absolutely. I don't think many people really understand that as we approve this budget, Ms. Martz is going to hit the ground running going into next year. So it's it doesn't ever end. And
right.
we're always so thankful for everybody that puts in the time and effort to make sure that the students are getting what they rightfully deserve.
Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Drummy?
Yes.
Mr. Froyo?
Yes.
Mr. Gray?
Yes.
Mr. Iovino?
Yes.
Ms. Luong?
Yes.
Mr. McCarthy?
Yes.
Ms. Spadafora?
Yes.
Mr. Weldai?
Yes.
Mayor Christensen?
Yes, that carries unanimously. Once again, thank you on behalf of the committee, Ms. Spadafora. Let's now go to school improvement plans. Mr. Iovino.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We received school improvement plans. Everybody had them in their packet from the various schools throughout the city. The school improvement plans were very concise. They were all well-written, constructed. They started with the overarching goal, their mission, and they focused in all the way down to what they call their various goals. They were SMART goals as well. I mean, those were goals that are smart. They're simple, they're straightforward, they're measurable, they're attainable, they're timely, and certainly the goals that were expressed in the various school plans met all of those. So I would, unless you want to recommend individually approving them, I would recommend as a package that the school committee approve the school improvement plans for the 2021 school year.
Second.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. McCarthy. Any questions on those? Mr. Weldai.
Just a quick note to the superintendent, I think, is it was great to sort of leaf through them and see, what people were focusing on, but it looks like some folks are still using the Gateway Cities model plan and some are not. And I think that was one of the things that you were looking is to get them unified under the same model. And it was, so I was surprised to sort of see 3 or 4 different types of plans when I know that that's one of the things that I think you're trying to pull them together to do. So maybe for next year, just something to think about.
They were easily focused in on, though. You could read them with a great deal of coherence throughout the system.
Yeah, they're very well done.
So,
Yes, that'll be something that we'll look at unifying next year. I think, we were with what we had, I think we had a consistent theme, but around the gateway model, it wasn't necessarily as unified as we would have liked.
okay. Very good. Any other questions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Anybody opposed? The ayes have it. That carries unanimously. Now over to Mr. Weldai, Relations with Police Authorities Policy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a quick and easy one. You've got in the packet file KLG, the Relations with Police Authorities policy from our policy manual. About a month ago, I received a request from members of the Malden Police Accountability and Alternatives Group just to look at and review this policy with the goal of modernizing it and making sure we have actual written procedures in place and a mechanism for collecting data, particularly in the moment that we're in as a nation. I think it's a good time to just look at this, just the same way we did with our immigration enforcement policy, and to make sure it reflects collectively what we'd like it to be. So quick thank you to Sarah, Erica, and Urga for helping me put this together, but also to Chief Molis for his willingness to help us work collaboratively on this over the next couple months. So I really would just like to make a motion to refer this to policy.
Second.
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Spadafora. All those in favor say aye.
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 Anybody opposed? The ayes have it. That carries unanimously. Any brief points of personal privilege? Mr. Drummy?
All right, real quick. Just that the Flag Day will be taking place down at Bell Rock Park on the 15th. That will be at 5 o'clock. Just on a more personal note, I want to wish everybody a happy Father's Day. Even if you're not a father, single parent, you still do the job. So enjoy the day. You deserve it. I want to say goodbye in case I'm not around on the 27th, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to say good luck to Kelly and John. Thank you for all you've done. It's been a pleasure working with you folks. I look forward to working with the new superintendent, but the last 4 years, it's been a blast. So thank you guys. Good luck to you and all your future endeavors. I'm sure I'll see you around. And everybody have a good summer if I don't see you. Take care.
All right, Mr. Gray.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a quick note, the Linden STEAM Academy PTO announces garden box updates. Planting Day at the Linden Yard will be this Saturday, June 12th at 8 a.m. Volunteers are welcome. If you do show up and volunteer, everyone needs to bring their own gloves, tools, and water to drink. And a special thank you to Denise Keating for the wonderful years of leadership of the Linden STEAM Academy PTO. New PTO members will be adding a hydrangea bush and some personalized bricks for Denise, thanking her for her many years of dedication. And a personal thank you, Denise. She's also a good friend of our families.
All right, very good. Anybody else? Mr. Iovino.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to make an announcement that I will not be seeking re-election to the school committee. I first came to the city of Malden on the 15th of January, 1968, a few years ago. So I'll be stepping aside, and hopefully anybody in Ward 4 that plans to run for the school committee will give them opportunity to pull their nomination papers and secure the appropriate number of signatures. I've enjoyed, obviously, my almost 51 years of service in the schools. The work that this committee does, and past committees and future committees, is vital. It's vital to the community, to the health of this community, and to the health of the children who look to us for leadership. The work you do is very, very important. And so I want to wish you good luck, and God bless all of you. Thank you.
Thank you. Other members, if not, anybody else? Ms. Luong?
I know I have publicly announced this, but I also am not seeking re-election to the school committee. And I just wanted to say thank you to everybody I've worked with, and I look forward to finishing out the term. But I look forward to seeing who from my ward will be stepping up to run for office. Thank you.
Good luck, Michelle. Good luck.
Thank you. Thank you.
Ms. Davidson?
You as well.
Just a quick note, obviously not on the same tone, but I'm planning on doing the task force, and I'll be contacting a few of you just to see any ideas or advice. But hopefully I'll do a student survey first to see the interest and then go from there. Thank you.
Yeah, hang tight, Ms. Davidson. I already have a note to circle back with you. So I'll reach out to you this week, okay?
Perfect, thank you.
All right, very good. Let's go into executive session pending a vote of the school committee for the purposes of contract negotiations. Ms. Spadafora makes it, seconded by Mr. Drummy. Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Drummy,
Yes.
Mr. Froyo, Mr. Gray,
Yes.
Mr. Iovino,
Yes.
Ms. Luong,
Yes.
Mr. McCarthy,
Yes.
Ms. Spadafora,
Yes.
Mr. Weldai,
Yes.
Mayor Christensen.
Yes. Okay, let's head on out into executive session. We'll come back out. Okay, let's see. One, two, three. We're just missing Lenny.
Lenny's working on getting back in. Oh,
Okay. Is he coming out, Mr. Weldai?
He says he's coming.
Ready hit a jackpot?
Adam, any word from him or?
Lenny, you're holding us up.
He went back to the executive session link.
Ah.
I'm trying to get him back to the first one.
Okay, hold on. Adam, he can't get in.
I just tell him the most recent email he's got.
Most recent email you got.
It wasn't working for me, Adam. That's why I had to go to the city's page and like pull up our link and come in. Like ours kept on bumping me out saying that the link was no longer valid.
Expired, yeah. I had to do the second email you sent Adam to get back in.
Most recent one Adam sent you.
I went back to Shirley's email.
Should we take Lenny on the phone?
We take him on the phone.
I don't know what else. Do.
All right, John, you're gonna have to carry him.
Yeah, can John put him on speaker?
That's what I was gonna.
Yeah, let's talk. All right, can you use that?
Yeah, you know what to do. We're just gonna move on without him.
Lenny, just.
Now to take the rest of the night off, John.
You do your motion. Do the first one.
All right, so let's take any motions. We're back from executive session. I see Mr. Weldai's hand is raised.
Make a motion to approve the attendance supervisor contract for FY 21-22.
For fiscal year 22, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, fiscal year 22. Seconded by Ms. Spadafora. Any questions? Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Drummy,
Yes.
Mr. Troyer,
Yes.
Mr. Gray,
Yes.
Mr. Iovino, Miss.
You
Mr.
said yes.
Iovino? You said yes, okay. Miss Luong,
Yes.
Mr. McCarthy,
Yes.
Miss Spadafora,
Yes.
Mr. Weldai,
Yes.
Mayor Christensen.
Yes. Any other business?
Motion to approve the MOA with the pertaining to the high school block schedule pilot for fiscal year 22.
There a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Florio. Any discussion? Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Drummy,
Yes.
Mr. Troyer,
Yes.
Mr. Gray,
Yes.
Mr. Iovino,
You said yes across the board, so yes.
Miss Luong,
Yes.
Mr. McCarthy,
Yes.
Miss Spadafora,
Yes.
Mr. Weldai,
Yes.
Mayor Christensen.
Yes.
All right, we
That carries unanimously. Any other business for the committee?
Bye, Len.
Entertain a motion to adjourn.
Len,
Adjourn.
yes, on a motion.
Motion by Ms. Spadafora, seconded by Mr. Weldai. All those in favor say aye.
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 Anybody opposed? School committee is hereby adjourned.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Bye.